Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 77. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my explosive friends Jody.
Hello everybody.
And Willie.
Yeah, it's me.
Welcome back. That was a big break we took there.
Forgot about this thing. Like it was like a vague memory, like a dream, a reverie, a memory of a memory.
I'm tripping over my words here, and I've done that intro at least 76 times. Like it feels kind of odd and strange, but exciting at the same time.
It's been a while.
Yeah, completely. Like I've got so much shit to talk.
Oh,
My
yes.
palms are sweaty. I'm so nervous.
Nervous excitement.
Don't fuck it up, Joe.
Before we get to all that good stuff, what did you guys get up to in the break?
Well, I worked throughout the December.
The whole thing?
Then, yeah, all the way through except the public holidays. Saving a little bit of leave for a lot of gallivanting that's coming up in this next 12 months. So a little bit of a trip back to the motherland.
Ah, yes.
Some more camping. Then the firstborn's coming over for some more camping and some more trips around Australia. So I've got a full calendar that I had to save some leave days for.
Nice.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And yeah, I guess if you're working, there's not an awful lot of other stuff happening. Did you read ahead?
Yeah, listened ahead and then also stopped and completely forgot about the Wheel of Time's existence. Like a good flush of the head. Watched a bunch of good movies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Recommendations?
Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Oh, I still need to see that.
Yeah, fantastic. Like really, really good like movie. Actually finished the Killing of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower
Killers.
Moon
Yeah.
the other night. That was eye-opening.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like
Not
makes
subtle.
you rage. Not subtle, no. It's long. Like I love Martin Scorsese movies. I love the duo of actors that's usually in his movies, and the surprise that comes at the end usually catches you a little bit blindsided. This was hard work. Hard work in the sense that I did not want to stop. Like I thought I'd do it in 2 sittings, and it just went on, and I was just like, whoa, this is but a bit of a history lesson. And I mean, as if news can't get you worked up enough, watch some old movies of the 1920s to get you worked up now. I mean, just seems par for the course at the moment.
Would you call it a slog?
No, I wouldn't call it a slog, but I will tell you what is a slog. These chapters.
I wonder, it's almost as if Mart set you up for that one.
Yes.
Yeah, walk this way, sir.
I tell you what, I did watch a movie that was as much of a slog as these chapters, and it is Barbie. And I had to watch it because I was sitting into it. I have children who like things. And I tell you what, if it wasn't for Margot Robbie, I'd be vomiting all the way through that movie.
Really?
It
I still haven't seen it.
It wasn't. I watched it. I don't think it was bad, but it's definitely not a movie I'd watch again or recommend anyone to watch. Like I watched it and I don't regret it, but that's all.
I watched The Creator.
Ooh, I'm queued up for it.
I never finished that movie. I lost interest about an hour and a half into it. I was like, oh, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. And at the risk of turning this into a movie podcast, I also have thoughts. It's worth a watch, Vil. It's good old sci-fi romp, but it's certainly not
everything.
It's certainly not breaking any barriers or anything like that.
The same thing happened with Rebel Moon by Zack Snyder on Netflix. Also, got like 3/4 of the way in and just gave up.
I'm not even going to start that one.
I'm done. It's just, look, it could have been half an hour like less if you had just stopped using so much slow motion.
That seems to be the consensus, yes. Now, apart from movies, Jody, did you do anything interesting?
I like we've been discussing before clicking the record button, been reading Jack Reacher novels. I got one for Christmas. The Bad Luck and Trouble, the one that season 2 is based on.
Okay.
I haven't started that one because I found another one in the communal library we have. The neighbors just leave books on shelves outside. I was like, oh, sweet, Jack Reacher. And I'm so into that. It's such an easy read in comparison to The Wheel of Time.
Yes.
The chapters are so short. The sentences are so short and concise. Just like, you fly through it. Like a real, lie by the pool on summer holiday read.
Yes. A palate cleanser.
Done so. Thoroughly enjoying that. Just been reading and watching TV. I did nothing over the holidays.
You mean they use just the bare amount of words required to convey the message?
Sometimes no words. Sometimes the words are Reacher said nothing. The best kind of words. None of them.
It's interesting you mentioned the writing style, Joe, because on my break I did 2 big things. The one was the Woodford Folk Festival that we took the kids to. We camped for 8 days at a huge music and arts festival. Yes, hippie festival basically. Where it was first a couple days of intense heat and then tropical thunderstorms and then intense heat again. But despite that, it was an incredible experience, and I would definitely recommend that to anyone in Australia or further afield.
Amazing.
I'll fly over that shit.
That was good stuff. And then what I also did when we came back is in Bellingen they host a thing called Camp Creative, where they just host a bunch of creative workshops for a week. So it's 5 days of class. You register for a course, and I registered for a creative writing course, or more specifically a Get Unstuck and Finally Write Your Novel course. And I was so conflicted because everything the teacher was saying flies directly in the face of everything that Robert Jordan has done. Don't use overflowery language and all these rules for editing your work. I'm like, well, Robert Jordan didn't do that. You didn't do that. Oh gosh. And then I'm trying to justify it in my head and talking to the teacher about it. And I could see she was a little bit out of her depth because she's not sort of across fantasy specifically. So it was interesting, but I did learn a lot of cool tools in that course, which hopefully helps me write a book at some point.
Well, I did a little bit of creative stuff. I'm learning another language this year. Learning in apostrophe, so I'm trying my best, but we'll see. I might surprise you with an intro. Surprise you there, Spaniard.
All right. Okay. Excuse me for asking. My apologies.
Okay, well, that's a nice thorough recap of all of our media and creative consumption during the break. This just turned into a conversation between 3 friends instead of recording a podcast, didn't it?
Well, you can tell we haven't had this unrestricted time that we have available on a Sunday every fortnight in a while.
No, we haven't.
Shows excitement and a depth of discussion that's going to flow around these very wordy chapters.
Well, speaking of these chapters, I have read ahead a little bit. I've read up to chapter 14, and I can see why people see this as the start of the slog. And it is not necessarily because it's uninteresting. I need to pick my words carefully here, but it's bleak. It's so bleak. It's everything is shit, and I won't divulge too much here. We'll deal with it as we get to it. But I can see it. I can see it, and I can see why I was underwhelmed with book 8 when I read it. Crown of what is the previous book? Crown of Swords. Crown of Swords ended.
Sure.
And like I said last time, this was the break where I had to wait for the book. So I was anticipating this book. Then I get it in the bookshop, and it's also smaller than the other books. And then I read this book, and it's so bleak, and it's just oh god, okay, is this what I was so excited for? But yeah, we'll get to that.
I've got a good theory about all of this, and we'll touch on it towards the end. Let's get there. It might be quick because we might
just setting us up that he has a theory.
I have a theory, but it's a secret.
Brace yourselves.
Okay, so before we get to Willie's secret theory, let's harken back to our previous selves in everybody's favorite segment called Callbacks. Okay, Veren's thought on the effect of the compulsion-like weave she put on Beldine is the woman might die inside of a year or in 10 as a result of this, but the weave itself would not harm her. So not breaking any of the 3 oaths. If you will recall from months ago, we spoke about like this chapter potentially showing Veren off as a Black Archer sister, but here even you see she's not breaking any of the 3 oaths, and some of our readers wrote in about that as well. So showing that she's cunning, but not necessarily a Black Archer sister. Then in the last callback section, I talk about Elayne and Jolene, which obviously should have been Teslin and Jolene, callback within a callback. In the callbacks, I made a mistake. Elayne and Teslin, way too close. They're in the same palace as well, so god damn it. Jody, you did say that there are 13 Aes Sedai in total in the Black Hills when the Borderlander leaders meet, but we focused on how the Aes Sedai know about this gathering despite Ethaniel's wish for secrecy, and we didn't say anything about the significance of that number. We listed out some of the Forsaken deaths to separate the quote-unquote good deaths from the bad ones, and we left out Ravin, who I think had a good one. I quite enjoyed that showdown. Some of the Belal ones and those things were anticlimaxes, but Ravin's was a good one. Then, Joe, you mentioned the wound on the golem's face from Matt's medallion. In the book, it's described as the livid burn on its cheek seemed like a live coal. So definitely not healed or a scar. Like we sort of offhandedly made a reference to a scar, but like a live coal. That's very evocative language, which is pretty cool. Online consensus about Moradin's involuntary rings comment is about the Adam and nothing to do with circles or, pulling people into circles or anything like that.
Okay.
Then we wondered, why was that spot chosen for the gateway to the farm? Why was it so far away from the farm that they had to ride? So partly because of secrecy. Only Nynaeve, Elayne, and Aviendha knew the spot that they would travel to. And it was to a clearing completely surrounded by trees, so no one could see the weave, no one that was around. And they picked it from a map. So, they were really trying to make sure that no one could even guess at where they were going. I think someone else wrote in about this as well, but we'll see. It's been a while since I made these notes. And then the Ungreal that they are also referencing quite a lot when, Elayne and Aviendha are going through the Ungreal. We thought that, didn't Elayne and Veren have 2 Ungreal that look exactly the same? But Veren's Ungreal is a lily-shaped brooch with too many petals and made of stone. It's not very strong. Elaine's turtle brooch is made of amber and is actually quite strong. After lending it to Talon originally, she eventually lends it to Aviendha. We thought that they might be the same one, but I think it's the fact that they were both a brooch is what made it seem like they were the same thing.
A brooch?
Brooch? I was just going to say brooch. Brooch?
Well, it's spelled with 2 O's.
Well, yeah, that's English for you. That follows.
Callback within a callback. How to pronounce brooch or brooch?
Brooch.
Let's take a vote.
Okay.
I thought maybe that's the Aussie pronunciation of it. That's a brooch, mate. It sounds like...
All right. During Villy's first chapter summary, I'm going to go look it up.
Pretty sure it's brooch. Anyway.
Villy, if I've got a blank look on my face, don't take it personally. It's because I've read the chapter.
And how about, I was like, I'll just go stop and it's a brooch, isn't it?
Okay. Then Berelain. Pop quiz, motherfuckers. Who's Berelain again?
She's a brown Aja.
Brown Aja lady.
She's the kinswoman with a talent for shielding, with the shields that stretch. They're not rigid, they don't hold. So even though she's very strong in the power, she can shield anyone. We were wondering whether she's there and why they don't just give Ispin to her to shield.
Oh, yeah.
But she's actually at the farm. So when they get there, she is there, but she's not traveling with the group. So that's why that's why she wasn't.
So who's the
her.
brown Asha with a very, very similar name? Oh, I'm gonna have to go call back on this.
I just piggyback on whatever you say. So whether you're right, then I'm right. If you're wrong, I'm wrong, and we're both in the same boat. It's easy.
Okay, very good. It's pronounced brooch, by the way.
That's not.
I'm stringing Billy along.
Don't fall for it, Billy.
I'm not. I'm firm in my resolve.
The Artham. Pop quiz, motherfuckers. What's the Artham?
I'm scared now. I don't know.
Isn't it a band from the 80s?
It's that dull dagger, Phil. You remember the thing that hides you from the shadow?
Yes, the one that was found in among everything that Aviendha still had like a long, hard stare.
Yes, exactly. So that's exactly why I put it in here, because we were sort of speculating.
But I think she stared at it because she loves daggers and stabbing people. So I think she was just like, a really good dagger to stab someone.
She's actually just confused. Like, how could anyone have such a dull dagger? What the fuck is the point of such a dull stabbing implement? But the dagger was given to Rand by Elayne shortly before the last battle. So Elayne is the one that gives it to him to hide him from the eyes of the Dark One until their very last confrontation. He refers to it as Artham. So Rand/Luz at that time, he's like, Artham. Like, he recognizes it, and he says that attempts to create similar ter'angreal were made during the Age of Legends, but were unsuccessful. And he wonders who finally managed it. So like, here's Luz having a cool reaction to even like Luz Theron having a cool reaction to a ter'angreal. It seems like examining Artham was when Aviendha discovered her talent for reading ter'angreal. That's what other people online have sort of, I think the fandom wiki or something said something along those lines. And since it supports my theory, I'm going to take that as canon.
There we go.
All right. Saratha's comments about linking, not being able to pull someone in involuntarily, and the attempt during the breaking to use it with men. So Saratha was the Aes Sedai that was explaining to the kinswoman and the Windfinders about linking in circles and that sort of stuff. Elayne noticed like a sort of a change in the tone of her voice, and we were going, I wonder what this means. Like, was someone trying to figure out a way to pull people into circles involuntarily? Like, what was she hiding? And will we come back and find out something about it? Sorry to say, inconclusive. Saratha could have been talking about trying to add men to a circle so that saidin could be used safely, but still driving men mad with disastrous consequences. Like, whether they were in a circle or not, they were channeling saidin, they would go crazy. She's also skirting around the fact that once a circle reaches 13 women, it requires a man to add another 13 women. So, like, they can only add women in batches of 13 if they add a man for every 13 women into that circle, which might be a bit scary to anyone learning about these things, since they are quite rightfully deathly afraid of men that can channel. Then we read about Raken, and we spoke about Raken and Toraken. So the difference between them is that the Raken is a large flying animal with a body longer than a horse's and about equal in girth. It possesses leathery grey skin and large, powerful wings. Reports comment that its intelligence is roughly equivalent to that of a horse. Its head is shaped like a long, horny snout with hard ridges that serve both as lips and teeth, and powerful jaws capable of shearing through a branch or an arm, and is supported by a long, graceful neck. 2 eyes set on the front of the head give the Raken superior vision. It has a very long, thin, frail-looking tail that's actually very strong. The Raken often lash their tail in anger when perched or on the ground. In flight, the tail is used with great dexterity to aid in balance and control. Raken have 2 legs, which end in feet with 6 long and very strong talon toes, arranged 4 before and 2 behind. It stands erect only when alarmed or preparing to fly. It's an omnivore, though apparently perfectly content with an all-plant diet. An egg layer. The female Raken lays 1 egg at a time. So 2-legged. Interesting. That's not what I imagined.
Oh.
Flying horse ostrich dinosaur. Yes.
Pterodactyl.
Now, a toe Raken. They are large flying animals that resemble Raken, except larger and brown rather than grey, and herbivorous, not omnivorous. They are not as agile or fast as Raken, but are stronger and can fly for much greater distances without rest or carry heavier loads. Their primary purpose is transportation of troops or cargo, transporting as much as 1,000 pounds over distances of 200 miles. So,
wow.
What I didn't include here is that apparently they are also beasts that the Seanchan recover from the portal stone walls.
Ah.
Just like the Grolm and the Lopar and all those things. It's not that they are indigenous to Seanchan, the continent. They go and get them from the portal stone walls.
The universes.
Which I think one of you said before they do about they do with the Grolm. All right, then the last one. Joe, you thought the unraveling of the gateways was used as a weapon later to destroy Seanchan forces, but as we see in these chapters, it was purely by accident that the weave exploded. Elayne was trying to unpick it, and I think she was failing, in my opinion. And then the Damane shielded her, so she had no choice but to let go, and that's when it exploded. And someone else wrote in as well to say that Aviendha actually explains to Elayne as well, like, you can't actually guarantee what the effect is going to be. Like, it could just disappear, could be a flash of light, could be nothing. For plot reasons here, obviously, it exploded and destroyed the farm quite quite properly, quite thoroughly.
Hey, get out of my chapter.
Sorry. All right, so move on to listener contributions. Everyone's favorite Kiwi, Gerald, writes in with the following. Perrin and the clues about being Black Aja, it could be argued that she didn't lie to the boys when she said Moiraine had sent her if the request had come from a third person. Like if someone else had said to Perrin, Moiraine wants you to travel with him, then Perrin wouldn't be lying when she said Moiraine wanted her to go. That's giving her a bit of an out. I think that's highly unlikely. I don't know who would be passing messages between Moiraine and Perrin like that. And also, when she arrived, she says, Moiraine sent me, Lord Ingtar, Perrin announced with a satisfied smile. She thought you might need me. That doesn't sound like someone being sent via messenger. And then Moiraine's reaction when you're supposed to, or when we now in hindsight can put the two and two together, Moiraine's reaction is, I did not send Perrin. She did that on her own. So she did that on her own is pretty clear. Yeah. Gerald says the discussion about the quote-unquote not compulsion Perrin was doing, things like compulsion and balefire are not banned in the Three Oaths, but they are banned by proclamation. That doesn't stop Moiraine from using balefire. Right? So
nope.
Proclamations can be broken.
It's like her favorite weave. Book 1, chapter 1. Balefire, bitches. Woo, woo, woo.
And then Gerald addresses Tim from New Hampshire, who we said the two of them should talk because they come up with these crazy theories. So strap in for this one. Gerald goes, hey, Tim from New Hampshire, we should go further into what happens when you go into Tallanvor, or as he calls it, T-World, in the flesh, and then go to sleep and dream. Would you have an out-of-body experience where your dream state person could literally be standing over your actual body and then be able to affect yourself? Or is it an Inception type thing, like you suggested, Moritz, where you go into the next level of T-World? And if there is a next level, would you be able to step into that one in the flesh from level 1 T-World, etc., etc., etc.? Tim, Gerald, figure it out. Come back to us with answers.
Very brief notes, Gerald. Tim, please. Just give us the footnotes of your discussion.
Yes. And conclusions. No more question marks, please.
No.
Clearly, we don't have the answers. You and Tim need to hash it out. Then Gerald says, my last item is about gateways. Obviously, if there's no designated gateway areas to be used, then you would want to create your gateway as far away from a population so you don't cut anyone in half, like what Rand did or does when he helps the Ogier get to Eamon's Field. Also, if people are not used to seeing gateways, then it's better not to create one where they can see it so you avoid panic. And then for gateway areas, like, we've got the roped off areas where they create gateways and stuff all the time. Even though they have these in later books, who's to say that two gateways wouldn't overlap or someone walking out of one gateway wouldn't be cut in half by someone else's gateway? Maybe they figured that one out in the finer details of their planning. It's actually a hint of that. Oh, is it in these chapters or where I read ahead? Might be where I read ahead, where someone weaves a gateway to Grandel's palace, and there's a chime that rings. And she notes like, someone's remembered some manners from the Age of Legends. So like there is etiquette from the Age of Legends, which says like you notify that a gateway is coming before you step through it or before you create it, which is interesting. Our people are not doing that. Rand is not creating chimes or anything like that.
No.
So Gerald's point is a valid one. Kerry sent me a voice note on WhatsApp to remind us that Morgase hadn't died like Agenor, Balthamel, Lanfear, and Ishamal himself, and later Grandal, so she didn't qualify for a new name. We were wondering, all the others get new names, but Morgase didn't. It's because she hasn't died yet. Mr. Dependable, Ian Yellen, sends in some more thoughts. He says, I had a thought of Elayne and her sorting through the baskets of junk, trying to find magical artifacts. Through one of the Forsaken POVs, we find out that many Ungreal, etc. are attuned to male or female and can't really be detected by the other. So Elayne could be throwing out male objects of power. All those chair legs and table legs. Yeah.
Table legs. Chair legs.
Yeah.
Because that seems like something
bolt together
a dude would collect,
a giant
right?
wheel to put together, and it's this massive Sa'angreal wheel that can only be used by men.
Yes.
The wood is quite
obviously.
Obviously. Like dad's just, collecting chair legs. In 20 years' time, I'm going to need this for a project. That's like 20 Tiangrel they're just throwing away.
I mean, I fit squarely in that whole... There's a meme that's been going around recently of a guy that, like all dads that have been saving something for 20 years. Yeah, exactly. Joe's doing the gesture with his hands like a T-shaped block of wood.
And the dad getting all excited. Like, Miley! That's what I was referencing when I made this comment.
I know.
That's what made me think of it.
Oh, right. Here we go. It's Ian that said, the explosion with the gateway happened because Elayne unraveled the weave. She, in fact, thought it would be a great weapon to use, but Aviendha told her the problem is that the effects are random. It just happened that way at that time because the plot armor decided it would explode. Too true, Ian. Then Will sends in the following message. He goes, "Hi guys, I'm caught up on the show and now annoyed by the fact that I can't jump straight into the next episode. I just wanted to put out a thought about using traveling to time travel. The ability to travel depends on your familiarity with your current location. If we think about our current location in space-time, you could never become familiar with a point in space-time because of the time dimension. Each passing moment is a new point in space-time, but familiarity necessarily requires some duration in time of length greater than 0 or nil or whatever y'all say." Thinking about this also spurred the following thought. In battle, would messing with a landscape, e.g. perhaps rings of earth and fire, disrupt your enemy's ability to travel? I can't remember if this is ever used or addressed in the series. So like when you are dramatically affecting the landscape, the spot you're standing in, you wouldn't be familiar with anymore. Would that affect your ability to travel?
It has to.
Yes.
Well, that's been kind of like a paradox thing around time travel forever, where you cannot time travel because you cannot know where you will be in the future or where planet Earth as an object will be exactly in space-time, because Earth and the universe, just talk to our local system, moves in the Milky Way in a spiral continuously. So to track this stuff, you have to be an absolute mathematical whiz.
Also, the Milky Way is also moving.
Yeah, and that is moving inside of space and all the galaxies. Like, everything's in constant motion.
I watched a very good Brian Cox special over the holidays where
Stuff is great.
With the Sydney Philharmonic Orchestra, where he just talks about like the Big Bang and all that stuff set to classical music at the Sydney Opera House. Pretty great. Do recommend. Then, Chris Green has done something that nobody has ever done before. He sent in some thoughts and left a voicemail. So let's get to the text.
What?
Beauty.
He says, as I'm sure was pointed out already, Matt's medallion works on both Saidar and Saidin, as stated by RJ, as well as some copies are used in the final battle against the male Chosen. He prefers the word Chosen as well, so there's a kindred spirit for evil. It has been shown to be vulnerable to outside elements such as thrown dung, and I believe he was killed by lightning in fires of heaven by Ravin, as evidenced by the smoking boot. So we know that, external elements can affect Matt. That's well recorded, but thanks for pointing out the other references. Regarding the Aiel Society selection, my headcanon is that they do an NFL combine style selection where they put through tasks and sorted by aptitude. Great at karate chopping cacti, you're a knife hands. Clumsy and struggle through the obstacle course, stone dog. Take a punch like a champ, black eyes. Always begging off for a break, water seekers.
I like that.
Yes.
He also said, I would love to hear which Aiel Warrior Society each of you would be drawn to. Now, if we didn't talk so much shit in the beginning of this episode, I would say let's do it. But let's take it as homework. I will send you guys a link to a summary of all the Aiel Warrior Societies. And then next time we will recap and say, okay, cool, this is the one I would join. Lastly, regarding the oft-derided pigeon postal service, I think there are some nefarious elements at work. It was shown in the Fires of Heaven when Rhonda Makura sent off her messages regarding Nynaeve and Elayne that the man in charge of the coats sent off his own message. We know that. I don't think every pigeon service has dark friends killing pigeons and stifling messages or anything. I think they are just not very dependable. And without being shown the mechanics or given a real timeline of how well it works by Robert Jordan, I'm just going to believe that it's not good. And the general lack of information that people have is proof of that, right? Like, people just don't know stuff. And then Chris's voice message goes a little something like this.
Howdy, y'all, from down in Seanchan. Long live the Empress. May she live forever. I just finished the finale of Crown of Swords podcast, and at one point you mentioned Nynaeve starting to tug her braid and then kind of second-guessing herself. And it was mentioned that it might have been because of, Lan's presence and she didn't want to get angry with him. I think it has more to do with her block. A couple of times in this book, we see Amis and Aviendha kind of stroking their knives, even though they're very strong in the power. Like they kind of settle back to that base, I can defend myself with this weapon if needed kind of instinct. I think we see something similar with Nynaeve throughout the story. Prior to now, she's had her block. So anytime she gets angry or feels like she has to defend herself, she kind of tugs her braid. And if she doesn't necessarily embrace the source, she senses that it's there. Her anger kind of allows her to sense or access her weapon, similar to like Emi stroking her knife. I'm going to be looking going forward as we read Path of Daggers forward, if she does that less, if we see less of the braid tug, less of that quick to be angry with Nynaeve. But anyways, just interested to hear y'all's thoughts on that, and hope y'all have a great day. Thanks.
I've got a take on that off the bat.
Okay.
What's that?
A behavior of tugging a braid could very well have started with a part of Nynaeve's life where she had that as a frustration, like not being acknowledged as a young person of ability. And as things and challenges come to her, which is personal, like her block and all the rest, it manifests in the same behavioral trait. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not one specific shortcoming of hers or a perception of a shortcoming in her opinion, but every single thing is like a root biting nails for someone. Like, okay, cool. Something's going wrong right now. What's my comfort? Like, bite my nails. What's my little default go-to to cope? So, I mean, that tracks, I suppose.
It does.
It does. I mean, for Nynaeve also specifically, the braid is representative in the Two Rivers of being a woman, right? Like someone to be taken seriously, not a young girl anymore. So like it was not just frustration, it was drawing attention to the fact that she has a braid and I am an adult and you do need to take me seriously, that sort of thing. For Nynaeve, obviously also a challenge because she is small. She's diminutive in size. So, like she's had to fight. She was made a wisdom young, so not taken seriously. So she's got all these factors, that sort of led her down this path of trying to make herself seem important.
What would she have done before she got put into a braid? Because, I mean, her personality would not have been one that all of a sudden that she'd become of age and she got braided up in 17, 18. Did she pull her ear? Or maybe just pull her hair? A fringe?
Who knows, man?
Who knows?
This is
maybe she bit her
speculative.
Nails.
Yeah, but that's it. She bit her nails. Then she moved on to the braid. Now she's trying to leave that. Who knows the next thing?
Well, the comment that Chris makes about Amis and Aviendha sort of still, even to this day, Amis, like a well-practiced, wise one of considerable strength in the power, still sometimes goes back to her knife, is seen, holding or like running her finger along her knife, that sort of thing, is relevant. But I think it is I don't know, like I think it's a bit different with Nynaeve. Like she never had the link between her braid and her power, right? Like she developed the habit of pulling her braid before she knew she could channel. And I don't think she needed that to stay angry to be able to channel, right? So I don't think I'm focusing heavily on the block part of Chris's theory here. Like I don't think that since the block has been removed, now she's trying to not pull her braid anymore. That said, my comment about Lan's presence being an influence stems from an observation that Aviendha makes in chapter 1 of Path of Daggers, where Aviendha had noticed that Nynaeve tried to keep a handle on her anger when Lan was around. So still, this is not from Nynaeve's point of view, but Aviendha has noticed that not necessarily the braid thing, but she is trying not to let her anger fly when Lan is around. That's where I got my theory from. Okay, so that is it for callbacks. Now, let's cast our minds back to last year for a quick dip into previously on Blood and Ashes. Aviendha has opened a gateway in the courtyard outside the stables at the Tarrazin Palace, and some warders and Elayne step through. The warders head out to scout and the various groups start coming through. Elayne stands near the gateway, checking each channel for strength as they pass by her. Once on the other side of the gateway, the tensions between the groups immediately starts flaring up again. Those groups being the Kin, the Aes Sedai, and the Seafolk Windfinders. Elayne is annoyed by it all and starts rummaging through the Ungriel and Terangriel they brought from the cache, and she finds an Ungriel she keeps for herself. Vandene comes over to lecture her on the dangers of studying Terangriel, but is interrupted by a scream from Miralil. Aviendha and the last 4 warders had come through the gateway, and Aviendha has started unpicking the gateway weave. The Aes Sedai are aghast. In fact, none of the channelers are okay with this, since none of them have seen it done before. But when the Aes Sedai try to lecture Aviendha on the dangers, she puts them back in their place, saying it's something the other wise ones can do as well, and that there is no danger if you know what you're doing. Furthermore, if they merely let the weave go, any female channeler with a talent for reading residue could have followed them to that very spot. This way, nobody could track them, and she doesn't back down. She mentions the person she saw watching them, but some others dismiss it as a servant. Aviendha is not swayed. They set off for the Kin's farm. Moradin is watching the party leave from the Tarazan Palace from a high-up window. One of his Darkfriend informants from the palace delivers him the news that the women seem to have found what they were looking for in the Rahad, something to do with the weather. Moradin is impressed by what these quote-unquote rustics are capable of doing in this age and is shocked when he sees Aviendha unweave the gateway. The news of the Bowl of the Winds is troubling. Apparently the Dark One had affected the weather with great effort, and that effect needs to be kept in place. He becomes enraged, and in the process of channeling the true power, he crushes the screen in front of the window. He inadvertently squeezes all the blood from Madik, his dark friend, who is now dead on the floor in a pool of his own blood. Moradin uses the true power to travel away from the palace, assuming the woman fled as far as possible. Shortly after, the golem shows up, only getting closer to the courtyard once it's made sure that Matt isn't there with his medallion, the only thing to have ever hurt it. It can sense the woman only a short distance north of the city, but does not immediately set off after them, but starts feeding on the free blood buffet. Back with the woman, they are riding to the farm while the water scout ahead and around. Nynaeve is in and out of the procession as she checks in and then hurries to find Lan again. This leaves Elayne in charge, and she is having a tough time managing the various interests of the women who come to talk to her. She even tries to have Aviendha intimidate the sea folk in some vague way. Eventually it all gets too much, and she unleashes on Miralil when she suggests that the Kin might be dark friends and therefore should not have charge of Ispan. When they arrive at the farm, all hell breaks loose when one of the women there spots an Aes Sedai face. In the pandemonium, Nynaeve and the lady that runs the place, Elise, rounds up the woman while Elayne and Aviendha go through the Ungriel cache. Adelaus and Vandene start to question Ispan. Before Elayne and Aviendha can finish rifling through the Ungriel, Nynaeve suggests they get busy fixing the weather. The women head up to a hilltop where they have a good view of the surrounds, and the seafolk nominate Kaya to run the proceedings since she has the most knowledge of the bowl and how to use it. Through a bunch of posturing and passive aggression, Nynaeve teaches the women present how to form a circle, and they form a circle of 13, some of them with Ungriel that Elayne had found. Kaya starts the process, and the results are flashy. A huge column of power shoots up in the sky and then fans out across the sky as far as they can see, seemingly of Saidin and Saidar, but when they are done, the weather seems exactly the same. Kaya explains it will take some time to affect the weather of the entire world, but believes they were successful. But the women all sense a bunch of channeling in the direction of Ibudar. They observe from a distance the effects of the Seanchan attack. Nynaeve wants to go back to look for Matt, but Elayne and the others tell her that's folly. They spot a Raken and decide it's time to run before they are collared. And that brings us to today's first chapter, which is chapter 6, called Threads. Please weave these threads into a word tapestry for us, Willie.
My word tapestry will be less wordy than the 100 pages that this chapter is.
Pretty sure it was only 50, but I know what it feels like.
Let me tug my own braid at the frustration.
Okay.
The verbiage. Now, Elayne, point of view, she's stoked. She's so stoked that her years of queenly training has paid off. And she took charge, she directed, and shit went right. And in a moment of gloating in her queenly majesty, she trips and falls on her face and buys a farm. Beautiful. And not only does she buy the farm, she also is witnessed by her warder as she looks up and she's at the feet of Birgitte. But is it not the time to make jokes at that point in time? You know, there is a imminent attack. Shit's going down. So she's saying, hey, fight or flight, but I reckon today's a flight day. So let's get on with it. Nynaeve, who joins the fray at that point in time, then very much says this is a moment to run. No one needs to get collared. And the reality of the situation is that 90% of the women there can accept the collar around their neck as they can all channel. So they have to move. And Nynaeve, of course, being Nynaeve, wants to take charge of the situation and start giving people orders, only to find that everything has been done and everything has been sorted. And Elise, my new favorite person, is on top of shit. Completely. Down to the point where they think warders have lost their mind, but the warders are merely following her instruction, running with sacks of supplies. That they think like, wow, what madness is this? Warders running with bags all of a sudden? No. That is a woman that's got her shit together. And I think she's probably 600 years old or something, because she's sussed out everything in life. She knows our command. She's like, oh, that's quite, these watermen actually can listen if they want to. Like, is this a thing of the bond that they start listening? And I'm like, wow, okay, she's observant while dealing with a crisis. She's just onto peg after peg going up. Now, she also has the time to tell Nynaeve to calm herself. Drink some cold water, and not too fast, mind you. Just settle yourself down. And it is beautiful that Nynaeve's jaw is like scraping along the ground with everything else. She's very capable words. In the words of Faile, that is very good. Nynaeve has lost a hat, and now she's a little bit focused around where her hat is.
Back to what's important, please.
Back to what's important. The hat. The hat was also found, and in a very patronizing way, given to Nynaeve a little bit later on, with the words like, "Don't let that pretty face burn in the sun." Like, patronizing to the T. It was fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to move aside from the Nynaeve humiliation, if you want to call it that.
You do seem to be reveling in it.
Usually she just beats everyone up. She browbeats them, or she physically beats people into submission. And this woman is doing it with a smile.
Yeah.
Like, have some cold water, mind you, not too fast. Don't want you to choke on some cold water. Either which way, she has everything so sorted that even the Ungreals and Sangreals and all the rest of the jazz has already been rounded up and onto wagons and moving. All that is left, now Nynaeve needs to find something that has to be left in this to sort out. And she's like, well, what about the woman that, just a normal woman? She's like, those with husbands have already left. Those who think it's safer to be with us, seeing that there's shadow spawn in the sky, are moving with us. So, sorted. Again, another feather into Elise's hat that she plucked right out of Nynaeve's and put it in her own. Ispan is still with the crowd. She's still shielded and moving around with a sack overhead now. And I think part of that would be around not giving them the ability, the Black Archer, seeing a gateway being woven. So it would make sense to put sacks over their heads if they were imprisoned. This is after this where Elise finds the hat and gives it back to Nynaeve with a nice little chirp alongside. Now, there breaks in this. You think that the perfect time to have an argument about ownership of objects would not be while people who can put collars around your neck is bearing down on you with lightning and thunder and fireballs and flying dragons, but still the Windfinders fight about possession of the bowl. And Nynaeve gets worked up by this, but guess who solves all of that? Elise. And everyone walks away with Terangriel back given to who belongs, and she just hurries them along. Now, the gateway gets opened by Elayne, much to the dismay of Nynaeve, because she thought, okay, no, she could do this. But Elayne took charge of it. The gateway is luckily big enough for them. Now, we have to also remember, they just had a massive channeling event, an incredibly big channeling event. They are drained. So it's not all battle stations ready to fight and throw fireballs. So for Elayne to open a gateway that is just big enough for the horse and cart to be able to fit through is actually quite a feat. But slowly they start progressing through this gateway.
Also, Vinny, was this not the same day That they were in the Rahad?
This is still the same day. So this is from Rahad Gateway with everything that happened there to the farm where they spent some time, but very quickly said, okay, cool, let's do this thing. Let's move up on top of the hill, do the big channeling event to change the weather, which was then felt by the invading Seanchan that they just missed when they got out of there.
But it's not just that. The fight against the Black Archer in the Rahad, Elayne was severely hurt and healed, so she's exhausted.
She's tired.
Before they left the Tarasyn Palace, before they used the Bowl of Winds, she was tired. So yeah, this is
now stretching her pretty thin. Because this is coming back to my end theory.
Okay.
Now, the Nynaeve is upset. I wrote down here. I don't know why. She standard. Nynaeve also then in this upsetness was giving Elayne a bit of eyes about her opening the gateway and that, and she said something, and Aviendha was like flat out stares, like, no, you don't speak to my first sister like that. Like, this bond between Aviendha and Elayne is really now getting cemented in this chapter, I feel. Now, Birgitte takes the lead. She goes through the gateway first as a warder, and it's kind of like a little bit of wardering up against warders here. So who's the better warder? Is it Lan or is it Birgitte? So she got one up on Lan. No, I'm going first. And
it's Lan.
Words out of my mouth. I was waiting for a gap.
I don't know, guys. This is a tough one. But the spot that Elayne had chosen is one of, and she corrects herself. She first thinks one of her mother's estates, and then she's now like, no, it's one of my estates, because her mum's, in her opinion, passed away, where she, as a girl, had learned to ride, or was taught to ride a horse by Gareth Bryn, and she knows that it's 2 weeks ride from Camelin. It's empty. It's a private place. There's not a lot of people around. It's a perfect spot. No one knows about it. Cool. That's the destination. And while they all marching through, Nynaeve decides to take up the opportunity to do roll call. Okay, cool. You through the gate. But again, just to be upset by Elise telling her, don't worry, I got this. I've already counted. They're all in order. I've already arranged them by size and weight as well. Nynaeve, again.
She's got their passports, social security numbers.
Stamp passport control done. Windfinders climbing on horses. Not arguing with Elise. Elise even got the Windfinders on horse, like shit sorted. Love that woman. Now, at the Elayne also got a little bit of a chirp with a hat story, where she's also been told to put a hat on by Elise, and Aviendha then sort of falls over laughing. She thinks it's so funny. But Elayne turns to her, it's like, hey, don't worry, I can get you a hat too, with many plumes. And she quiets down. You must shut down. Like, okay, I'm not going to get a hat. Elayne pretty much has made a decision that once she's going to get through this portal or gateway, she is going to do what Aviendha did. She's going to untie the weaves for the purpose of not giving traveling to the Seanchan, which is 100% on point. Like, you just cannot do that. And she starts and just, plucks the first one, the strands that she has. And this thing reacts like a 2000 volt live wire fizzing around on the floor, like a snake. And Aviendha's like, okay, cool, whoa, look, if you're going to do this, you really picked the wrong thing to pick apart for the first time, but hold on to it and hold on to it tightly, because it can become really slimy. The other reaction of Nynaeve is like, no, just put it back. Like, put it back and let the whole thing go. Don't take it. Just stick the thread into there, then let it all go. And Aviendha's like, doesn't work that way. You've started the process now. What it is broken. It's unstable, and this thing's flashing and wobbling and going nuts. But it's still open, and you got to carry on with it. So there's tears, there's sadness, like, holy shit, okay, this thing might kill or burn someone out. But the idea is get everyone away let us deal with it. And staying behind is Elayne, of course, Aviendha, and her warder Birgitte. It's like, we deal with this. We're not going to go let the horses run off. And she's very worried about her horse, Lion. Is it Lion? Lioness? Something.
Lioness?
Yeah, well.
Sounds right.
Didn't make it, FYI.
Yeah.
These things happen.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Now they're waiting for Every to be out of sight. Aviendha gives her the whole talk about what to do, how to do it, but they're there. But as this goes, the Seanchan is advancing towards the gateway. You now have fireballs and lightning, and they can see that the Suldam and the Damani, they are being instructed to target the gateway, and lightning crashes literally through the gateway. There is electricity charge standing on end, and it's shit's going down. Like, people's coming through the gateway, and that immediately engages Birgitte with a bow, and Aviendha is full on stabby bits. Like, first reaction stab, second reaction, oh yeah, I can channel, throw fireballs. So fireballs are hurling, crossbow bolts are being loosed. They're taking bolts in the legs. So Birgitte gets rammed one straight through the thigh, which of course Elayne feels like the searing pain. So now she's trying to handle electricity snakes sparking around. They're trying
slimy
to get
electricity
away.
Snakes.
Slimy electricity snakes. Slimy electric eels is what we'll call them now.
There we go.
It's a lot of focus that has to do, but at the same time they've got arrows and fireballs and lightning being thrown at them. They're in a pickle. But still, she holds on. Still, she tries to do the right thing and doesn't give up. They make the decision like, okay, cool, she's going to get on a horse. Birgitte mounts the horse the wrong way around, so she can still shoot arrows while getting away. Elayne realizes at this moment in their getting away what weave is being prepared and thrown at her from the demand that at this stage now it seems to have entered through the gateway, and it's too late. And this was quite interesting. The weave was prepared a half a mile away from her. Like, that's a decent distance that they have already cleared themselves, and she knew, and she couldn't do anything about it. It was just too late, and she was shielded. And with that shielding, obviously, the weave just imploded on itself. And if you want to liken it to the SAR bomb testing or Bikini Atoll, but shit went atomic and flat. They get thrown, horses' backs broken, they pretty busted up. But when they come to and realize that their teeth is loose, but they're still there, like the idea that you fall so hard your teeth is loose is quite a lot to take in. They look back at the utter devastation, that there is nothing left. Like, it has been flattened. They have reached the crest, obviously, at that stage. They're on the other side of it. The bomb went off. Relief around the fact that she realizes she's not burnt out, which is the greatest, like, I'm alive and I can actually still feel the source. So that is a great relief for Elayne. But like I said, the devastation is evident. And it also just that remarkable moment of survival and whatever. She's like, announces her undying love to Aviendha, and she wants to propose to her and get married as first sisters off the bat. And that opened a whole other bag of fish for me. Like, okay, what does that mean for their relationship? Anyway, I guess we'll deal with it in another day when we get to it. We jump to Tullayne's point of view. Now, Tullayne is a pilot. She flies a two-seater cockpit bird of prey. Is it the Raken? And, wondering like why there's so little resources allocated to this battle, and why is more resources allocated to the movement of the blood. Not that she wants to speak ill of the blood. And, well, she basically has an aerial view of the bomb going down. And her bird of prey falls out of the sky only to regain itself sort of a few feet from the ground. Like she started counting down like 800, 500, to the 700, 6, 3 feet to the ground. But the training is, you let go of the reins now. This bird can fly itself. Let it regather itself. Don't
autopilot.
Yeah, no, don't pull on the mouth and the reins and the bits or whatever the hell you control it with spikes in its arm. I don't know. Like the mechanics of this animal is not really well known to me, but she does the right thing, and the bird recovers and pulls out of it, and she's like, "Woo, we made it!" And she looks back to her co-pilot, only to see the little lifeline dangling at the back. She's like, "All right, well, some little saying about the flight only lasts that long, whatever," and then you splatter on the ground. But yeah, that's it. Like, and it's the end of that chapter.
Yeah,
lots of death. That bomb that goes off, that explosion vaporizes everything. Like there's not even little black Seanchan skeletons on the ground or something. It's like fuck all.
That's why I say I probably would say that it is likened to a fusion bomb. It's like just an atom bomb that rips everything to pieces.
On a smaller scale. So then what are we doing?
Yeah. that hill that they're behind stops it. Yeah. That's enough.
And they're half a mile away.
Hide behind the hill.
A small blast.
Yeah.
Just a kiloton. Not a 50 kiloton.
It's like that episode of The Simpsons, Moritz. Localized to that area.
Think about it like Fallout. You get little nukes.
Mini nuke.
Mini nukes.
The mini nuke. All right.
I think the most important thing I learned during that chapter is that it's pronounced brooch, even though it's spelled brooch.
Yeah.
Is that what you were?
I said I was going to do
it. Beauty.
Right.
What else, Joe? Before I lob all my nonsense in there.
I don't have much to add except I loved that scene where they're running and Elayne falls on her face, but Nynaeve is behind her, just elbowing people out the way.
At the farm still, like everyone's scrambling to get out of there.
Just like running and just get the fuck out of my way. And then to get to head, to take charge. And when she gets there, it's all that. Elbowed all those people for nothing.
Settle yourself down, lady.
Just made 50 new enemies.
Yeah.
For nothing.
Typical.
Yeah.
I think I alluded to this in the previous episode, but here Elayne marvels at how she acted like a queen and people actually listened and followed. Remember we were talking about like what's the point of that whole chapter with the pleasant ride, and one of you made the point that she's managing all these different parties, and like she has to manage all these vying things. It's a lot of this. What we're seeing now is Elayne sort of in training for becoming queen. The stuff with interrogating Ispin, and her quoting her mother: if you're queen and you order something, then you've done it yourself. You can't order something that you're not willing to do yourself. She put herself in charge when she gave those Aes Sedai a dressing down in Ibudar at her mock trial, and she took charge. Now she's taking the burden, and she's stepping into that role. It's just that this chapter opens with her thinking, wow, I said to everyone, we got to run, and they listened. It's just, I think that is the specific line that I referenced back then. Birgitte is a great warder. She's there to pick up Elayne before Aviendha can get to her. It's explained, like she's running with Aviendha and stuff, but when she falls down, Birgitte's already there, busy picking her up. I just love reading cool stuff about Birgitte. But then Birgitte says, I suggest running. My bow is of the ordinary sort today. Do we run? Do we fight? I suggest running. My bow is of the ordinary. And then Elayne wishes that Birgitte would keep that under wraps if she wanted to keep her true identity hidden. So this implies that Elayne knows about the fact that sometimes Birgitte's bow is not magically accurate. So, when she says my bow is of the ordinary sort, we know Birgitte's Silverbow, right? She shoots people in the eyeball every time, doesn't miss. But now Birgitte herself is saying, I'd prefer if we didn't stay and fight. My bow is of the ordinary sort today.
I don't think it refers to the accuracy of a bow. It's the scale of the battle. When she comes as a hero,
think so too.
She's able to do stuff with the bow that's magical. Like there's stuff that a bow can do and shoot things probably further or maybe just more powerful, where now she's actually bound to the mechanics and physics of a bow and arrow that she can, yes, at 100 paces, wield, or probably further, with great efficiency and effectivity. And she does that when they defend the gateway, when Elayne is busy unraveling it. I think it's like she's alluding to, like, okay, this is not a farm where we got called in and we took the Seanchan out there.
Or Valen Lucas Circus, where she's shooting at Nynaeve, like
part of that's just her accuracy. Yeah, that's like super accuracy, what she has.
But then why does Elayne say, "Oh, I wish Birgitte wouldn't talk like this because we're trying to keep her identity a secret"?
I suppose she's referencing the fact that she's a hero of the Horn and she did magical stuff when she.
Well, that's exactly my point.
Because I think they I don't know. I picked it up. I had the same thought about it, like my bows of the ordinary kind. Like I was like, okay, is it a reference to like, this is too big a battle?
But Faile was in a bigger battle. I thought.
Yeah, but she was.
Yeah, but she had all the other heroes of the Horn. I think because she, like where I read it was that today we are overwhelmed by the forces here. Like we're not going to be able to win this battle. I think we should go. But the way she worded it was very suspicious, which made Elayne go like, you shouldn't word it like that. Implying that you have like, sometimes you have a magical bow.
There's a whole another angle to it that you can think about. Like through this whole battle, when she gets shot and when there's things happening, she is speaking in the old tongue. And Elayne picks up in reference to the fact that that sounds like a cool phrase. I should actually learn what it is. So maybe in the heat of battle, she's throwing out things that's translated differently. Like, hey.
Yeah, anything's an option.
Yeah, I don't know. The wording is definitely suspect, and Elaine's reaction on top of it is also like, okay, so the way that reads at face value is that sometimes her bow is not magical. But like you said, maybe in this type of setting.
Let's look towards the future. If she can do stuff with her bow that is perceived to be magical, like if she shoots a bird out of the sky 2 kilometers on one day versus the next day can't shoot a crow out of the sky.
But I mean, even Rand does that, right? Like even Rand, when he's shooting Grolm and stuff, like he goes into the void and like he's firing arrows, and before the first arrows hit, he's already firing the next one that also hits a Grolm in the eye. And like excellent shooting can happen, even if you're not Birgitte Silverbow. You might have to be the Dragon Reborn, but there's still a precedent for like
the bar's not very high.
I guess not. I don't know. Like, it was just a bit suspect. We'll put a pin in it and see if we can see any reference to it.
I think we're reading too much into that comment.
But then why put it in there?
Today's not a good... Because she's giving away who she is. It's just a moment for her to say like, hey, just try and word it differently next time. We're trying to keep your identity a secret.
But she doesn't say anything to her. She just thinks it. Anyway.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Later.
I read it.
I'll let it go.
All right.
Elayne thinks how she's feeling a little off herself after the use of that much power, like she can pluck bits of Saidar from the air. What is this? Is this the weirdness that Robert Jordan mentioned, like around where those weaves went through the sky? Like he had said in interviews that there are some main spokes of that weave that went, the bowl went up in the sky, and then the big lattice spider webbing across as far as they could see along some of the main arteries of that thing. There is weirdness, quote unquote weirdness in the power. Is that what this is? Or are they sensing the channeling of all the Damane in Ibudar? I mean, that's what they think originally when they sensed a resonance or like a reverberation in the power after they've used the Bowl of the Winds, because even the weakest people there are sensing channeling, and it's because of the sheer amount of channeling happening in Ibudar. Is this that she's mentioning that, or is it like actual weaves affecting the molecules in the air, like how they're affecting the weather, so the entire atmosphere of the planet, like maybe individual bits of Saidar and Saidin have gone to like every single point in the atmosphere, like it's suffused the atmosphere with a weave.
I think it's a multitude of things there, like yes, potentially the weirdness, and also the fact that it's everything that she has been through, healing, fighting, healing, injury, next linked into a circle with a bunch of strange women that will make you feel strange emotions when you link, I suppose. And then fixing the weather, and then there's electricity in the sky, and you're holding on to electric eels to try and manage that. I think she's just done too much for a day.
Because when she weaves this gateway as well, she says it feels weird. The flows wavered in her grasp, almost as if trying to twist free, then snapped into place so suddenly she jumped. This is not her trying to control the single thread. This is just when she's making the gateway. Like the weaves are all weird, and then they snap into place so quickly that she actually gets a fright. She, in this moment, writes it off as being tired. But she says...
Yeah, that's what I thought. This
is what she says is, it's the worst it's ever been. I'm just now constantly looking out for this quote-unquote weirdness in the power around where they use the bomb.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe there's an effect in the air with as you say, rightly, the spokes went out across, which you can think like maybe crossing the globe type of thing.
And Robert Jordan himself said that this weirdness is as a direct result of them overcharging this ter'angreal. They put way much through this ter'angreal than it was ever meant to do. Moradin, when he thinks of the Bowl of the Winds, he says it can't affect more than like a part of this continent, and they've used it to affect the weather of the entire world. So they have completely overcharged this thing. And Robert Jordan has said that is why there is a weirdness in the one power along these areas where the majority of the weave went. So there's definitely something different. Willie, I also had a chuckle at Elise. You know, the brooch, I almost corrected myself to brooch, the brooch that Elayne gave to Tallanvor to use. Nynaeve takes it after the channeling, and you sort of alluded to this, but it's Elise that goes up to her and goes, let me tell you about theft and blah, blah, blah. And it leaves it leaves Nynaeve, like the top windfinder of the sea folk, spluttering, like at a loss for words and just having to give over. Like Elise puts her in her place without like breaking a sweat. Love it.
I don't know where you come from, what the rules of theft are, but over here, one does not take things that does not belong to one.
Yeah. I also loved seeing Aviendha sticking up for Elayne as her near sister all the time. So when Nynaeve is critical of Elaine's attempt at making the gateway, Aviendha shoots Nynaeve. She doesn't say anything, but she shoots Nynaeve a look that makes Elayne want to grab Aviendha's arm to hold her back. Like just the expression on her face looks like, whoa. Don't hurt Nynaeve, our friend that we've been traveling with for months now, you know, like even Nynaeve is not spared Aviendha's retribution. When the Seanchan soldiers that swarmed the gate with crossbows, when they arrived, they're described as short. Why?
They are bow.
Jesus, Martz is reading into everything.
I suspect these are the Terraboner. And we're going to be saying boner a lot now, so let's get our lols out.
Terraboner.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that, but I don't think so. Because the people that they capture keep their livery, keep their armor, keep their colors. You can see it when they take the stone. They come in there with more Terraboners who are dressed.
When they take the Fortress of the Light.
Yeah, when they take the Fortress of the Light, you can see the Terraboners there are dressed like Terraboners. Morgadian. Morgase recognizes them. I don't think they dress them like Seanchan. I think maybe these are just the short guys they use,
smaller guys,
smaller targets, or
give them crossbows. Yeah, you're not going to stand up in a fight because it's only the Kyrenian. I looked; it's only the Kyrenian that are ever described as shorter than other people.
I think it's just that they are crossbowmen, which is for the first time like really referenced. These aren't bowmen; they're crossbowmen. They don't particularly need body size. You think the lances would be something that is bigger, but the dead giveaway is quite simply that they speak with a droll and do not. We don't kill them; they have to be taken. Like that is the
But wasn't that the Suldan?
It could have been, yes. I mean,
because the crossbowmen are the ones shooting at them, so they're the ones that have to be told, "Don't do that."
Don't kill them. Just leave them, wound them.
Yeah. Aviendha has no such reservations. Her weave of fireballs she's not throwing fireballs. These fireballs are forming in front of the gateway and then shooting through, and they're not big, but they're going through at like a steady pace, so like more like a machine gun of fireballs, like just going at a regular, which is perfect for specifically this scenario, right? Like it's just covering fire for them to get away, which was really cool. There's actually, I'll skip ahead now in the chapters I've read ahead. When Soraleia and Cadsuane meet, they talk about Soraleia sort of like, we don't do any of this fancy hand waving that you Aes Sedai do when forming weaves. And Cadsuane goes, and it is true, it is unnecessary, but a lot of us do it. And in a monologue, she's thinking about how Aes Sedai can recognize who's been trained by whom by looking at the hand movements that they use. Yeah. And Soraleia is quite dismissive of it. So in an earlier chapter, we were talking about the wise ones, their fireballs hitting the Raken first because they're not bothering with the throwing motion or hand motions at all. Was my interpretation. And Soraleia actually confirms that. So it's cool. Like Aviendha is just standing back and these fireballs are just actually appearing in front of the gateway first and then flying through, which is
like the idea that she's like Cyril Figures throwing suppressing fire.
It is suppressing fire.
She's like, what?
You have to watch Archer for that one. Have you watched Archer?
Nope.
Random episodes.
So
not a fan.
So funny.
Elayne was holding that one thread. She took one thread from that weave and was having a tough time of it, right? Like there's other threads still to go, right? So this thing that she's doing is really hard. And while holding that one thread, she was saying, I don't know how much longer I can hold this. No wonder other channelers were nervous about someone trying it. It sounds impossible. Aviendha, I don't know if she says it outright, but when I read about what Aviendha, when she scolds the other Aes Sedai about unraveling the weaves, it is actually a talent. Not all the wise ones can do it, but there are other wise ones with the same talent. So Elayne might just not have this talent and to bit off way more than she can chew.
No, but afterwards, and in reflecting on it, Aviendha tells Elayne that even when she was taught to do it by the wise ones, all the years back, she started with a simple knot of air and got slapped in the face more often than not of the thing exploding in her face. So it is a practice.
You have to train it.
And start with, you want to undo a knot. You're not going to take a cry nest and a fishing reel to start your learning of undoing knots. You're going to start with a simple slip knot and say, okay, cool. If you pull this and you pull this, then things happen.
Yeah.
Not take on the monkey fist that you want to undo.
Even if Elayne didn't get shielded by this Damane, she was going to let that thing collapse anyway, right? Like she was barely clinging on there. Another cool thing about gateways, you can see through a gateway from the other side. It's got like a heat wave effect, but you would be seeing the exact same thing as if you were standing in front of it. So you can see through, it's got a sort of heat wave effect, but you can still see. So do you see the exact same picture, or do you see in the other direction
the mirror,
or do you see the mirror of the same picture? Right, like
I'm imagining
what do you
mirror.
see? And then it said that you can't walk through a gateway from the wrong side because it would be incredibly painful.
But you can.
Exactly.
But it would be painful.
Exactly. So, what does that mean? Like, where would you go?
You would go through the gateway to the same place it's going. Just be a much more difficult journey.
Sure. Interesting.
You'd be going in reverse.
Seems possible.
Because it's remember...
No, you'd step out of the gateway backwards and go, what?
You come moonwalking out the other side.
Grab your crotch.
Okay, then... Such a tender moment between Elayne and Aviendha. Elayne realizes that Aviendha risked being burnt out by staying as close to Elayne as she tried to unweave the gateway, right? So, that's why afterwards she asks her immediately to be first sisters and kisses her on the cheek. And Aviendha agrees. She blushes wildly, but then still returns the gesture. And Elayne loves her as much for that gesture as she does for staying behind at great risk. So, Aviendha knew, even just by staying close to Elayne while she's trying this thing for the first time, not with a knot of air, with a gateway, while they are being attacked, she could be burnt out by staying this close to Elayne. And she stayed anyway. And then when Elayne kisses her on the cheek and says, as soon as we find a wise one, I want to be first sisters. And Aviendha says, I do too. And she can see how embarrassed Aviendha is by the kiss on the cheek. And then Aviendha still gives her a kiss on the cheek back. And while Birgitte sort of pretends to be looking in another direction or something. It's just cool that Elayne holds both of those acts of bravery in the same regard, right? Like the fact that she stayed behind could be, and the fact that she would kiss her in public. And that just made her want to be first sisters even more, which is great.
Crazy fucking Aiel, man.
Yes, and then my last point.
You can sweat tent like 50 naked people, men, women, no worries. But I kiss you on the cheek.
On the cheek.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
There's no kissing in public between the Aiel. Like that is something that seems to be. Like, isn't there a touch to the lips at some point?
Yeah, you just touch them.
But this is like, hey,
your dirty hands.
Nice kiss.
Elayne's section closes with her hoping she would be a queen to make her mother proud, but it was clear she would never make a hero. So lots of talk about Elayne being a queen and what sort of queen she would be and what sort of queen she could be. So it's very clearly signposted here for us. Okay, we are now seeing Elayne step into her queenhood. Okay, that's it from me.
Yeah.
Except, psych, because the next chapter is chapter 7 called A Goat Pen, and it's time for this old goat to chip in and give you a summary. So you're not quite done with me yet. We jump to Perrin, and he's standing on a ridgeline looking down at a town called Bethel. It's hot and he's feeling sweaty. He can't make out the flags hanging limp, but he knows they're displaying the sigil of Queen Alliandre of Gildan, who Rand has sent him to meet with. He notes this town is a long way from the capital, Johanna. The town gates are open on both sides, but there are around 20 nervous-looking soldiers stationed at each gate with some other nervous-looking crossbowmen along the walls. There are all sorts of reports of attacks from the Prophet's Dragonsworn. You can actually see plumes of smoke in the distance and attributes them to either the Dragonsworn or White Cloaks burning farms because brigands don't bother with burning. Correct, White Cloaks and Dragonsworn are both worse than brigands. Something else that could be adding to the nervousness are rumors of the fall of Amador, which is right on the border here of Gildan. And some of those rumors declare Pedronile is dead as well. Plus, Perrin's army has not gone unnoticed as it marches through Gildan either. So all of these are reasons for these soldiers to be sort of skittish, which is giving Perrin pause about like who he should send down into Bethel. Perrin thinks it's a pity he can't ask the wolves for more information about what's been happening in this town, but he hasn't asked the wolves for anything since the events at Dumai's Wells. He feels quite bad about how many wolves died there. Faile joins him where he's observing Bethel and makes it clear that she doesn't think he should go down there to meet with Alliandre. In fact, he's pretty sure she's suggesting that she go. Then who should show up but Berelain, of course. She's trailed by Anura and Galeen, or Galene, her Aes Sedai advisor and the commander of the Mayana Winged Guards. Anura stays back as Galena is checking out Bethel through a telescope, twitching his reins in one hand as he does so. Perrin has come to recognize this as a sign that Galena is performing calculations, no doubt about how to attack Bethel. Apparently that's always his first and only choice, attack. Berelain reminds Perrin that Rand specifically sent her to treat with Alliandre and suggests that she be sent down to do just that, but Perrin knows that's only half the reason. I'm assuming the other half of the reason is to stick it to Faile. Berelain adds that Anura, being an Aes Sedai, would immediately be given an audience so they would be led straight to Alliandre, no questions asked. So while Perrin is considering his options, Seanchan approaches the ridgeline, but she's not looking at the town, she's looking at the sky. She's joined by Idara and Navarin, 2 of the 6 wise ones that have come with Perrin, and they are also looking at the sky. So, refresher, Seanchan is a green and part of the original Saladar embassy to Rand. She and Missouri, a brown, were the Aes Sedai sent by Rand to accompany Perrin. Idara and Navarin are wise ones, quote-unquote, looking after the Aes Sedai. Read, they're in control of Seanchan and Missouri. And in fact, Seanchan is not allowed to speak unless spoken to. Idara is the de facto leader of this contingent of the wise ones, and she often speaks on behalf of the wise ones to Perrin. So when Perrin asks them what they see, they just respond with, "We see the sky, Perrin Obara." Like, typical wise one response. Perrin knows that little more than half a week ago, so about 6 days, because I think in Wheel of Time the weeks are 10 days, a huge weave of the One Power covered the sky, and all the channelers, including Grady and Neil, saw it. The channelers all said they could still feel the One Power in the air long after the weave had disappeared, and nobody knew what it meant. So here's mention of, like, Saidar and Saidin still being in the air. The logical conclusion they all came to was that if that much of both Saidin and Saidar were used, it must be the Forsaken working on a massive scale, which is terrifying. It's not true, but it is scary. When Navarin asks Perrin if he's made a decision, everyone tenses up with anticipation. The arrival of Seanchan's warders with a report on the surrounding area gives him a moment's reprieve. Apparently, everyone is locked up in their mansions, hiding away from the Dragonsworn. The Prophet's men are all ragged like beggars and wielding crude weapons amounting to not much more than pitchforks and sharpened stakes. Seanchan looks to Idara for permission to speak, and once granted, she tells Perrin there is no more reason to delay making a decision. And guess what? Seanchan makes a case for her to be sent in, since she is A, an Aes Sedai, and B, apparently known in Gildan. Idara immediately adds that she and Navarran would accompany her, but Perrin has heard rumors of Aiel attacking villages in Gildan, and he bets Alliandre would have as well. The sight of 2 Aiel women telling an Aes Sedai when to jump would surely spook her. Finally, Perrin makes a call. It will be Berelain, Anura, and Galene, whom he assumes the soldiers in the town would assume is Anura's warder. Berelain is over the moon and caresses his arm and flashes him a very suggestive smile. Faile doesn't seem to notice Berelain's moves and hides her disappointment at not being sent well. But then Perrin apologizes to her for not sending her, and she cuts him off sharply. Perrin, you foolish fool. Exactly what I wrote in my notes. Perrin, you fool.
Shut up.
Get your head out of your ass and into the game.
Doesn't get it.
No. And never will.
Like, it never will.
I'm giving up on him.
Dumbass. Yeah.
Yes. So not only is Faile pissed, Seanchan and the Wise Ones are also clearly fuming. Berelain, on the other hand, is eager to get on with it. So when Perrin instructs her to be careful and that she and only she should be doing the talking, she agrees quickly. The message she is supposed to deliver to Alliandre is that Rand understands her caution, likely inferred from that coded letter she had sent before. If she wants Rand's support, she must be willing to declare for him openly. Rand will send her soldiers and Ashaman to make it clear she has his protection. He would even come himself if necessary. So Perrin barely trusts Berelain to deliver that message, but certainly not Anura. They ride straight down and approach the guards at the gate, who let them in immediately and almost eagerly. So the guards are checking the surroundings and the ridge to see if anyone might have spotted them aiding an Aes Sedai. I bet the Prophet's men would read that the wrong way, and they think so too. The rest turn back towards camp, and Perrin leads the way, followed by Aram. The mood is tense as they ride past some pretty forlorn-looking farms that line the road. Perrin was surprised that Faile wasn't angry when he chose Berelain to go to Bethel, but she was instantly furious when he tried to apologize. Even I can see how this was dumb. While they ride, Perrin is contemplating the situation with Faile, but he is completely lost. Aram then spots a commotion up the road at a farm that looks to be burning currently, with angry shouting. My thought was Perrin should have heard that first, right? But he's obviously too distracted by his thoughts of Faile. Get your head in the game, Perrin. Like, you've got super hearing, but Aram can see this commotion before you can. There were a dozen or more rough-clad fellows carrying spears and pitchforks trying to force their way into a goat pen. The wall is about chest high, and inside the goat pen are 3 mounted women fending off the would-be assailants. Seanchan immediately tells Perrin he should leave them be. Killing the Prophet's men would be a bad start to dealing with him, and tens of thousands of people could suffer because of it. Idara and Navarran shoot daggers at her. She was not supposed to be speaking unprompted, right? Like, so there's a lot of interaction between them here. Perrin asks the Wise Ones if they could frighten the men, and they say, perhaps, rolls eyes. Perrin doesn't wait any longer and calls for Aram and the 2 warders to follow him as he charges at the men in an attempt to frighten them off. He pointedly does not brandish his axe. Before he knows it, Faile has joined the charge as well, of course. He's about to tell her to go back, but instead wisely changes to guard my back, to which she smiles, pulling out one of her numerous daggers hidden about her person. He surreptitiously gestures to Aram then to watch out for Faile, and he nods, but he's already drawn his sword and looks eager to murder. Perrin shouts at the attackers, but they don't notice. But then all of a sudden there's a loud thunderclap that takes everyone by surprise, and even Stepper half stumbles before correcting again. The attackers finally notice the oncoming charge, and a few heft their weapons, but before the horses reach the Dragonsworn, a wheel of fire as wide as a man is tall appears above the goat pen, spinning and sending tufts of flame shooting out as it rises and falls, making a mournful groan to a keening wail and back again. Just moving up and down and making these weird sounds, and like these little tufts of fire flying off them. Pretty showy, not causing any damage. But I thought it was a cool detail that, like, we don't often hear the sound of a weave.
Is this remind you, what are those fireworks? They're called pinwheels, or what are they?
Something like that,
yeah. They spin around like that.
Aussies have a name for them. Oh, gosh. I heard it the other day and I've forgotten it already. But it also reminded me of Moraine spinning her staff when she tells the story of Manetheren and fire shooting out of the ends. It's also just for show. It's like this showy thing.
Yeah, it's a pretty showy weave.
Yeah. The Prophet's men break and run. Spotting a gap, one of the women in the pen kicks open the gate and sets off at a gallop. Perrin sets off after her and eventually catches her horse by the bridle. He apologizes and reassures her he means her no harm, but her response is unexpected. A travel-worn but furious woman stares back at him with a regal face. She's about to tell him she doesn't need help when another of the women, an old, bony, white-haired woman, also pulls up and thanks Perrin for his assistance. There's obviously Elayne and I'll call her Magden. We know it's Morgase, but I'll call her Magden just to keep the ruse alive. Elayne scolds Magden and doesn't seem too fazed by Perrin's eyes when she notices them. Magden is a quote-unquote good 10 years older than Perrin, which puts her around 30. But Perrin must be misreading her age, right? Because Elayne is almost 20.
He's been hanging around Aes Sedai too long. Like, you can't judge ages anymore.
You can't, no.
I was thinking, wondering around that in the judging of the age there, is Morgase did go to the tower, and she could channel a little bit.
Yes.
Does that affect her aging? Because, I mean, it's a weird thing to draw, like, now about Morgase, the age thing.
Yeah.
Like, like she doesn't look, and I mean, everyone always says how she's a good-looking queen. And, you know, she's not bound by the oath rod, and she can channel a little, so therefore she must age slower and keep a good look.
Yes. So she doesn't have the ageless look. She just ages slower. That's a very good point.
Yes.
That's 100% answers that question I had. Nice pickup.
There you go. I'm on board too.
Beautiful. Love it. Magden does not smell afraid, but Elayne does. Not of Perrin, but she's more wary. Then Tallanvor rides up, but keeps his distance. He also smells wary, but of Magden, not Perrin. Perrin wonders what he's ridden into here, because like he can sense there's some fucking weird dynamic going on. But he offers his protection back at their camp. Magden declines and makes it clear to Elayne in particular that they will keep moving. Perrin is trying to figure out this group. Is Elayne Magden's mother? Is the man with the stubble and the sword maybe a little too into her fair hair? Meanwhile, Faile, with Aram at her back, is checking on the people remaining in the goat pen. Seanchan and the wise ones are nowhere to be seen, for now. As the group returns to the goat pen, Terrell, one of Seanchan's warders, arrives dragging a bedraggled-looking man by the collar. The rough-looking man is not cowed, and he informs Perrin that they're all in deep shit now. The prophet has declared that if a man bothers a woman that doesn't want him, he dies, and this lot has been chasing Magden. But Magden makes out as if that's crazy and that these people are her friends. Perrin senses there is a lot more going on here. In the meantime, Faile and the others were coming to join them, 3 more men and a woman from the goat pen included. But then he notices Seanchan and the wise ones, and Seanchan has a scarf stuffed in her mouth. And Aes Sedai with a scarf stuffed in her mouth. So like Idara and Navarin took her off somewhere, scolded her, and then shoved a thing in her mouth, and she's just taking it.
Beautiful.
Magden is aghast. She obviously recognizes an Aes Sedai and can't fathom how this could be allowed. Seanchan's warders are also visibly fuming. Furin is a silent thunderhead, but Tyrell complicates matters by tossing a ropey thing on the ground, saying the man dropped it. It takes Perrin a moment to realize it's a string of human ears, and it sets his teeth on edge. The man pleads innocence, blames it on another man, despite using the phrase earlier, the prophet will have your ears, and at the same time threatens retribution from the prophet. Perrin stalks up to him, and he gets close to the man, who then notices his golden eyes and starts showing signs of fear for the first time. So the scent Perrin has been getting from him, other than his BO, has indicated that he doesn't feel guilty about anything, or until that point doesn't even feel afraid. It's all to show us that these guys actually believe their crazy dogma, that they're all zealots like Messima himself, right? So there's a lot of talk about how this guy is not cowed. He's clearly outnumbered. He's outgunned, but he's not afraid, and he's hurling abuse at them, telling them, and he believes all this stuff. He has drunk the Kool-Aid.
The biggest part for me there, it's kind of like a understanding of who follows Messima. Like people who like the idea that rules are gone. I'm a prophet. I'm setting all the rules on behalf of the dragon that's not here to manage anything. So you get all like actually vagabonds and really bad people that climb onto this cult and go like, okay, cool. We can work with this lawless guidance of a madman.
It suits them.
And yeah, it suits. And the more of them they pass, the more joins the fray, and they just become like riffraff. They become another extension of the White Cloaks.
Yeah, mob mentality. So Perrin tells this man to spread the word that Perrin was sent by Rand himself, and if he finds anyone burning anything, terrorizing anyone, or looking at him cross-eyed, they hang. He commands Terrell to let him go, and the man runs away without even looking back. Faile smells proud, and Perrin feels a little better about himself after threatening to hang people. Others are less impressed. Seanchan is almost quivering with disapproval. The wise ones are also shooting daggers at him. And Terrell says the thing that they're all thinking, I thought it was all supposed to be about secrecy. Which it had, because that was the plan they'd all agreed to. But Perrin speaks plainly. He's supposed to stop that sort of thing, and it stops now. Terrell nods in approval as if seeing Perrin for the first time. And at that point, Magdan speaks up and says, actually, I think I will take you up on your offer and go to your camp. So she's now seen exactly what kind of man Perrin is, and I think she's realized she can trust him, at least for now. Perrin is surprised, but he's even more surprised by who he notices among the men from the goat pen traveling with Magdan. He thinks it's probably Ta'Veren at work, and that is how the chapter ends.
What? Those two guys hiding behind the horses, pulling their hats real low.
I mean, it would be so hard for Lamgun to hide as well. He's huge.
I don't know what horse he's hiding behind. He's probably just crouched on his knees.
On his knees behind the horse. It could
Old
be a really
sickly
big
horses
horse, like
as well.
Dun, like one of those Scottish big ass horses. He could hide behind that.
Oh, yeah. Possibly.
Yay, so here we go. Faile has finally met her little handmaid, her first maid, and spy master. And
there's that scene. This is one thing that I that took from this was Rand. Perrin also having his little leadership moment here. Because when he charges, he says, Aram, Tyrell, or whatever the guy's name is, on me. And he goes. He doesn't even wait for them. And when he looks up, they're all with him.
Yes.
Like, they just obey him and go.
Yeah, but I think that is already set in stone from...
And Faile. I like when he's going to talk to her, she just arches her eyebrow at him and he's like, oh, yes, dear.
You got my back.
That's all it's...
Watch my back.
No, but I mean...
There's no point.
Perrin led an army, so that a lot of those guys that are with him are already there. It's Aram... Perrin can't
Aram,
go to
obviously,
the without Aram being there.
The waters are
the
still...
The waters are a different thing.
Yeah. That is noteworthy.
Because these are new guys. I don't know these guys. They weren't at the Two Rivers when he led, the Battle of the Two Rivers, and he led the people and everyone followed him there. They don't know this dude.
No, they hardly know him at all. They only met in Cairn. Like, Perrin arrived, had a fight with Rand, and left. And these Seanchan and Missouri were sent with him. And they are also, Seanchan and Missouri are only a step above captives, right? Like, they are, it's interesting for the Warders to leave Seanchan behind. So yeah, noteworthy. How about you, Vil? Anything to add there?
Yes. The heavy proclamation that Perrin lays out at these vagabonds. You tell Masema that, not the prophet. Yeah. Remember, Perrin knows Masema and his madness. He's been around him and his madness. He's got no fear of this mythical prophet. It's mad Masema. Tell him I'm here. I'll hang people, not him.
Perrin, could be argued, helped set Masema on his path.
True.
Do you remember at the beginning of The Dragon Reborn when they camped in the mountains?
Yeah.
And Perrin is busy, he's off to go see Rand or something, and he's stepped in the stream, he's got a wet foot. Masema comes up to him why is Rand doing this? And Perrin sort of talks to him now. He goes, don't worry, it's all part of the plan. Rand will look after us, something along those lines. And Masema's like, yes, you're right. This is the Dragon Reborn's will. Perrin was there as Masema was clicking over into fanatical zealotry.
I mean, it could also have been a rock that fell on Masema's head at that time that could have clicked him over. I think it's a
Masema was always, he was always a sketchy dude. Remember, how, he's the one that charged at Urien. When, Urien was standing in the road, Masema is the one that he was always jumping to violence. He's a black and white sort of guy, Masema, yeah. There's no nuance. What else?
It's... I'm going to go with, it started feeling sluggy when it becomes Perrin and Faile chaptery. It's a little bit long in the tooth now, the Berelain, daggers, things, and
that's just dressing on the chapter though. What's really happening is Berelain's being sent into Bethel, so the Queen of Gildan is about to be engaged and is in this chapter, and we meet this is the coming together of Morgase and Lily and Tallanvor and Lamgun, those guys, and Perrin's group. So I mean, things happen. It's not just them and their relationship, but it is sprinkled throughout, and I mean, it is every Perrin and Faile chapter. We are beaten,
gonna deal with it
over the head with it. Yeah.
And Moritz, your comment there about Morgase changing her mind, I think it's not because she can feel she can trust this man, but because he says, I'm Perrin Ibara, the Dragon Reborn sent me. She goes, a connection to the Dragon Reborn. I think I will go with you and see what I can find out.
You think so?
Because in my chapter, she's heavy into like what she can do if she stays in this position and where she is. Maybe she can have some influence and whatnot and whatnot.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Also, don't disregard the fact that Perrin is Ta'veren. So things will also pull.
There's that.
There's always that.
To him, there's always that you kind of forget it. You tend to think that it's always about Rand, but we've now been proven with the girls in Tanchico.
Ibudar.
Just Ibudar, sorry. We're just involving Matt. Just come along for the walk. Got them into the position of finding what they need and almost using him as a tool. Which is now maybe
throw him at the Windfinders and see what happens.
Just to keep quiet, let him talk.
At the Sea Folk.
I think in this specific instance, I mean that's always there, right? But in this specific instance, it has to do with what Perrin said. Because first she goes, "No, thank you. We'll be moving on." So his Ta'verenness would have already swayed her if it was just that.
I wonder if she's built up a resistance after all of that
compulsion.
From all that compulsion, like she's not easily swayed anymore. No, not even Ta'veren works on her.
Maybe. Who knows? She is strong-willed. We will say that.
Yes.
Adrian sent me a message on Twitter, just saying how much she loves Morgase and how that's the character that she identified with the most when she read the series, and she's keen to hear our takes on her. And I responded with, all our takes so far have been like, fuck yeah, Morgase, love her. Like that whole time that she spent with Ravine and like how she resisted the compulsion and stuff was awesome. And I do like her.
Yeah.
What else? Not much, eh?
No, not from me.
People meet. Now comes the real plotting. Now comes the real politics. Yeah. Jody, why don't you take us into chapter 8 called A Simple Country Woman? You're a simple country man. How about a simple country summary for us?
What did you call me?
Simpleton. I mean, a fellow countryman?
A fellow countryman. Yes, that's what I heard.
Yes.
All right. So we're back with Perrin. Still with Perrin, I suppose. Not back. He's collected his group of people now, and he's heading into the camp that the rest of them have already set up in while he was out spying on the town and saving Morgase and everything. So remember, he's got the Mayonnaise with him, he's got the Wise Ones, he's got the Aiel, he's got the Two Rivers dudes. It's like fucking what an eclectic bunch. So he's eyeballing everybody on his way back through, having inner monologues, so you can go read that. Everybody's eyeballing him back. Some nastier than others. The Aes Sedai are especially eyebally today. They're being worked hard by these Wise Ones, and they are not happy about it. We've seen the treatment with Seanchan. Is that her name? Yep, that's the one. So yeah, it's not going well for them under the auspices of these Wise Ones. Perrin thinks they blame Rand for their situation, but I mean, obviously they do. But he's not there, so Perrin's getting the dirty looks. To his nose, the air smells of sweat and smoke and boiled goat meat, which is what a combination. Morgase is playing it cool, but Perrin's not buying it. Like he's seen before that she saw what an Aes Sedai looks like, on sight. That's uncommon for a simple country woman. He knows she's recognized the Mayonnaise colors as well and the armor. And there's more Aes Sedai faces, so she's like, her eyes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but she's trying to hide it as she's going through. Because I mean, are they not? They're still in Ghealdan, right? He hasn't told her that they're going to Andor yet.
No.
So okay. He realizes that most people wouldn't have recognized all these things, and he's sharp. He's watching all of them. So just like more evidence that she's not what she seems. She's got young Tallanvor on her heels too, and Perrin's like, hey, I've got one of those too. His name's Aram. We should organize a play date between the two of them. I've also got one of these tag-alongers. So if Morgase is doing a pretty good job of being nonchalant, not to Perrin's eyes because he sees everything, but to everyone else's, then Baller is a master at it. Baller. I call him Baller because he's such a baller.
He is in this chapter especially.
Like, Perrin's noticed that like there's very few times that he can catch this guy out. He's not as transparent as anyone else, and he's only caught his scent a few times. And he's smelled of being a wolf testing the air, you know. So no fear scent on him at all as well. He's just calculating and observing. So they're heading now like through that camp. What?
Sorry, Jody. The guy is not even being. You can't smell him. He's such a spy master. He can hide his scent.
He doesn't even smell.
That is an immense skill. Like, I'm not even going to sweat at this lie because I'm a spy master deluxe.
I fucking love Baller. I think he's great.
Yeah. He is a very cool character to have around. And he gets even, more useful as time goes on. So they're heading into like the Manor part of the camp now. Also, the Two Rivers men are there, and here's where the goat smells go from boiled to roasted. So you can tell there's lardy people here in this part of the camp. And at least here he gets some friendly greetings from the Two Rivers men, And although there's a bit too many of the Lord Perrin and the Perrin Golden Eyes chants for his taste, but he keeps telling people to stop saying that, but no one takes him seriously.
No.
Don't forget that Grady and Neil are there too, being all usher money and making people uneasy around them. And Perrin thinks to himself, like, after what he saw at Dumai's Wells, like, he'd never not going to feel uneasy around them, and no one else either who was there and saw that shit. So anyway, they are there too. He's just also, I don't know if it's in this chapter or the previous chapter, where he's grateful that they weren't there when they had to save Morgase from those brigands, because who knows what the fuck they would have got. Rolling ring of earth and fire, basic weaves, their go-tos. And as he's approaching his wildly ostentatious tent, he sighs, just wishing he could camp out, with the rest of their Two Rivers men under the stars, sleep on the ground, but he can't make Faile sleep on the ground outside when Berelain has one of those tents as well. So it's a constant, got a weigh and balance between Berelain and Faile all the time. It's tiring for him, and it's tiring for us as readers.
Yep.
He just wishes, like, geez, if Berelain were not there, but he didn't have to bring her with. But good thing she is there, because he can send her into the danger. You go talk to those people with all the crossbows pointed at you in the town. So she's not there at the moment. At least a little bit of a respite. So he walks into like a clearing between all the cook fires and the tents, and there are also the two flags flying that he has told them multiple times to pack away: the crimson red wolf head and the red eagle of Manetherin. And he's pretty sure he ordered those packed away, but nope, they're back out again. And turns around, and there's old Maigden, fists on hips, all pretense and nonchalantness packed away. She's staring daggers at those rival flags that she's heard were raised in her kingdom some while back, I was like, way to play it cool, Morgase, So apparently everyone's given up the ruse. Perrin was supposed to be all, secretive about why he's there. That's out the window. Morgase is supposed to be in disguise, but she lets him know what she thinks about those flags. She's heard rumors of those flags being raised before in Andor, in the Two Rivers by someone named Ibarra, in defiance of their rightful ruler and all this kind of stuff. She's very uppity about it. And Lenny's, of course, staring daggers at her, like, shut up. Perrin tries to tell her, like, hey, look, I'm sure Morgase was a good queen, but she never bothered ruling anybody in the Two Rivers, and they took care of themselves, and that not to worry about Andor and all those places, because Rand means to put Elayne on the throne, and just like, again put his foot in it. And Morgase is like, put Elayne on the throne? What are you talking about? No man does anything, blah. She's really losing it now, and Perrin is now totally confused because he's smelling Maigden, and she stinks of fury. But this is when Lenny, of course, comes to the rescue, quickly comes in, shouts, like really dresses down Morgase in front of everybody, and tells her to apologize to their savior, Lord Perrin. It's like, you forget yourself, woman. But she draws herself up, and surprisingly to Perrin, apologizes for shouting at him and saying those things. And he just quickly accepts it so that the super awkward situation can be over and they can move on with their lives. Faile comes out to the rescue as well and gets Aram to take Morgase and the rest of them to get cleaned up out of sight. But just before they're about to leave, Perrin, just nonchalantly as well, says, yeah, Master Gil, when you're done with you getting washed up, I'd like to have a chat with you. And everybody goes like stiff, stopped in their tracks. Tallanvor's almost drawing his sword, like, oh shit, busted. Mm-hmm. And Basil's all like, oh, hey, Perrin, I didn't see you there, buddy.
I don't know if you're going to recognize me.
I thought that maybe that could be you, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to say anything. Like, whatever, bro. And he's like, well, let's chat now. My bath can wait. So they take the rest of them away, and old Basil stays behind. With the jig now thoroughly up, Llangwin's also like, hey, sup, Perrin? And puts in a good word for Perrin as well with Morgase. It's like, you can trust Perrin. He's a good guy. I know him, know. So after they leave, Perrin and Basil take a walk to get some privacy and to calm him down, because he can smell like terror on Basil Gill, like it's stressing out. I was thinking as well, like, you're trying to calm him down. He's obviously scared, so you lead him away from where there are people and safety and witnesses far out to the behind this tree, like. And it's like Perrin's like, well, it didn't work. It didn't calm him down. Like, well, yeah, like you're freaking him out even more. But Perrin's, about to kindly and gently try and get the truth out of him about what happened. Because, like, from the previous chapter, we've read and known that Perrin knows something's up. This dynamic is super weird. He wants to get, the real story. Like, so how, what happened? How did you get Joe? Who's he with? Who are these people, But then before he can, say a word, Linny comes marching up again. Linny is just always popping in. You never see her coming, and then all of a sudden she's there. And she's like, tell him right, Basil, get your words right. He has a tendency to, wobble on a bit, so stick to the point. She's also clean. Done her hair. Like, fucking when did she do that? Anyway, it's Linny. She also has superpowers. She doesn't trust Basil as far as she can throw him, so that's why she's there, to oversee what he says, make sure that he's sticking to the story. Together they give him the quote-unquote official narrative of what happened. But during his rambling, basically, he tells Perrin, like, he left all these different things they did. They even ended up in Amador, but that and the Seanchan took the city. And this, of course, like piques Perrin's interest, and he grabs the old man by the lapel. It's like, tell me about the fucking golf shoes. Tell me about these Seanchan. And then Perrin, tells him, he tells Perrin about the Seanchan, their strange ways, these creatures, and, he's like, you got to believe me. And Perrin's like, I believe you, totally. I was there. I've seen these guys before. Because remember, he was at Faile after all. He's seen some shit. He saw these Seanchan just walk through the White Cloaks as if they were nothing. So he knows this. And this is like, he's heard the rumors now, and now it seems to pretty much confirm that Amador has fallen to the Seanchan. So this is a big concern for him at the moment, but he's got all this other crap that's going on around him to deal with. Linny chimes in saying that she thinks, out of nowhere, like, Perrin, I think you're a good man. And he's just like, okay, thank you, I suppose. And she adds that, he should know the truth. And Basil tries to shut her up, but she just steamrolls over him. But the truth that she wants to tell him is that, about Mygdon and Tallanvor, that there is actually something. She is sort of running from him, but it'll all be sorted out because they're actually in love and too stubborn, too stupid to do anything about it, and that Perrin should just marry them against their will. Like, don't worry, they'll thank you later. Perrin's just like, all right, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have saved you guys. Just sort of left you to die. He's just like, all right, I got stuff to do, I'm, lord and all, got some lordly things, and then just excuses himself and leaves. So he heads back to his tent where those foolish Faile people are there outside the tent. They actually stand up and try to block his way, like into his own tent where his wife is inside.
Annoying.
Before one of them, were their leaders, Berelain, I am pronouncing it, orders them to like back off, and they reluctantly sit down. It's like, Jesus, guys. But anyway, Faile likes them, so he's not gonna push it too much. Inside, Faile and Morgase are sitting down, having a cup of tea, just two nobles trying to suss each other out, figure out what's going on here. he tells Mygden that I'm going to swap between Morgase and Mygden all the time. That Basil told him their story, that he knows like where they've come from, basically, the official story. And Faile tells him that Mygden has just done the same, so that they're both on the same page. And she offers to take them into her service. She's like, "You guys have had a hard ride. Why don't you come work for me?" Perrin agrees. You see, he is starting to learn. Like, don't fight with Faile. Like, you may not understand what she's trying to do here, but just goes with it. Morgase nearly chokes on her tea, but she eventually accepts. And this is more to do with her just trying to be around Perrin and these people that are connected to the Dragon Reborn. And now that she's heard that Rand intends to put her daughter on the throne, she figures this is a good spot to be. So she takes her up on the offer, and she's going to work for them. After Morgase leaves, ever so properly, you could see she's been in court her whole life. She knows how to. She takes 2 steps back and then bows and curtsies, and she's got all the forms down. Faile has a happy little fit. She's so stoked that Mygden said yes. She's like, "Oh, I love that woman. She's got spirit. She's going to be my favorite." Perrin tells Faile about Linny's silly idea of marrying Tallanvor and Morgase. Like, can you believe the crap that she said about that? And then the Seanchan have taken Amador. I'm going to give you guys just one guess about which of those 2 pieces of information Faile reacts to first. Yeah, the marrying part. Yes. Fuck the Seanchan. No. Seanchan, Schmornchan. And she's like, yeah, I think it's best. I've had some servants in the past that they were not married, and it's much better if we just marry them. They'll be happy about it in the end. She totally doesn't give a shit about the Seanchan. She tells Perrin, like, yeah, Amador's far away, and Perrin, you'll deal with him when the time comes. Like, 100% not worried at all. Perrin wants to warn Rand about the Seanchan. It's like this big fucking news, But Faile says, like, listen, sending the Asherman is going to blow our cover, in Camelin or Kyrian. Where were they when they had the fight? I don't remember. Kyrian. All right. So it's like, you're supposed to be exiled, remember? You're not supposed to be like in chatting to Rand and whatnot. Plus, the way news spreads, Rand will probably already know, and if he doesn't, he'll know soon enough. The rumors will get to him. Mm-hmm. Also, he has Asherman that can travel across the world, so he'll know. So then he's like, well, if, I can't warn Rand, then he's going to at least do something else, like burn those bloody flags that they've put up outside. And Faile, predictably, talks him out of it. She's like, yeah, rumors will spread about them, and if he is perceived as just some douchebag trying to resurrect Manetheren, then they may just seem like small fries compared to the Seanchan, the White Cloaks, the Prophet. So they may just fly under the radar of the White Tower, by doing nothing in particular in this region with this eclectic bunch of people and the size of their forces. They're gonna draw suspicion. But if they hide in plain sight and just pretend to be like upstarts trying to resurrect Manetheren, they might just be overlooked by the Aes Sedai spies. So Faile turns his attention to finding the Prophet, and they start going over some maps together and start making some plans, and then we leave them. That happens off page. We're back with Faile's point of view later that night. After she is sure that Perrin is asleep, she gets up and sneaks out of the tent, which she thinks to herself and to myself that that's no small feat, being able to evade those sharp ears and eyes, and get out of the tent unnoticed. She takes like a walk through the camp. She's not trying to hide, but she's not trying to draw attention to herself either. She passes Mygden's group around the campfire. They're all startled by her approaching, but she just tells them basically it's bedtime. It's late, you guys, have a big day ahead of yourselves, and walks on. When she turns around, they're all still eyeballing. They all stood up and just looking at her wearily. She thinks that maybe they just, they've had a tough time on the road. They're just weary of everybody. In a clearing outside the camp, she meets her Char Faile. This is where I think they're officially named. The first time I've read it, at least. She sent them. They were her scouts. She sent them into the town, into Bethel, and they've just returning now. And she sent them to do some reconnaissance in disguise. In this case, just women in dresses. It's very different to how they normally look. Like, no one's going to suspect a thing. So apparently the town is quiet. Like, there's no trade, very little food. Like, the Queen is touring the city every day, trying to keep everyone's spirits up, but everyone is terrified of the Prophet. So they think that, look, they got like all the men, all the fighters, everybody on the walls trying to protect the town, but she figures that if the prophets showed up, they just give him the city. Like, everyone's on edge. So they also made a map of the town for her too, and confirm, for some reason she wanted to know, that the wagons leaving the town are not searched. So we're like, what are you up to, Faile? So Faile's making her own little plan on the side here. I don't know, sneaking the queen out in a cart?
Yep.
In a wagon? No, all right. No, easy enough to guess. She then gives some more orders, some very dangerous orders that raise eyebrows amongst the Charfael, but we are not privy to these at all, and we leave them discussing their future plans while we pop over to Morgase's point of view. So she's having trouble falling asleep, tossing and turning. I was thinking, I started writing, it's been quite a day for her. Then I realized, no, it's been quite a week, really. No, month. No, year. The last year of her life has been pretty fucking rough. Intense. Yeah. So she's, it's obvious that she's having some trouble falling asleep. She hears someone passing by and she spots Faile returning to her tent. She's also a fan of Faile. She thinks she's young and a bit inexperienced, but obviously nobly born, and she knows what she's about. Smart girl. So these two are going to get on. And then suddenly Tallanvor crouches down next to her, out of nowhere. He's there, shirtless, muscles glistening in the moonlight. And he's like, hey, what the fuck, Morgase? Entering Faile's service? Like, what are you thinking? Like, I thought we were supposed to be in disguise and like keep on moving and trying to be safe and trying to get back to Andor or whatever. Why are you going into her service? She tells him like she has to make a life for herself. Like, that's her excuse, And he's like, I'm not buying that shit. You don't tell me that again. And it's better to be a lady's maid than a tavern maid. I'm like, whoa. No offense to tavern maids the world over, if that's your chosen profession. And if he doesn't like it, he can leave. And he's like, the same shit over and over. You just keep treating me like this the whole time. So he's actually there to tell her that Lenny wants a word with her. And I'm thinking, sneaky Lenny, I bet she waited until he had taken his shirt off before sending him.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, don't worry about putting on a shirt, dude. Just go right away. It's very important that she come and talk to me. She tells him, like, listen, man, the Dragon Reborn has plans for Elayne. And here they are in the camp of one of his, henchmen, she calls Perrin, a henchman of the Dragon Reborn. Like, fate brought us here. We're staying. Like, over here, I think I can make a difference. I can do some influence. And he's trying to tell her, like, listen, Elayne is safe in the tower. Wrong. Their information is really out of date.
Yep.
She hasn't been in the tower since book 3 or some shit.
Yeah, but also remember, the information comes from the White Cloaks, who we know are extremely wrong about stuff all the time.
Well, I mean, they're with Balwer. He should have the right information. If there's anyone going to have it, it's him. But anyway, that's not the information she has.
No.
He tries to tell her that Elayne is safe and everything, and that little old Mygden is not going to be able to do anything about the Dragon Reborn on like a global scale, from what you hear. And anything else, she's not going to have an effect on anything else for that matter, let alone the Dragon Reborn. It's dangerous for her, She shouldn't trust Perrin. Didn't you see him? Like, he almost, he lost it with those bandits earlier.
Yeah.
Shouldn't trust Faile, and speaking of Balway, shouldn't trust that guy either. He was working for Pedro Nile like a week ago. We don't know any of these people really, so you should be more careful. At this point, Tallanvor basically professes his love for her in the third person, and that if she really wants him to leave, he will. All she needs to do is say the word go, and he'll go. But she can't. So he kisses her eyes. All right, cool beans.
Strong move.
He says that, he says that even if she had told him to leave, he will never leave her. And then he leaves. Just walks off. He leaves her there, all angry and frustrated, horny. And that's the end of the chapter.
He's had to go crank one out.
Yikes.
Yeah.
He says, had you said go, I would have given up hope, but I could never leave you.
Yeah. It's all bluffs. They're all just talking shit. She's telling him, if you want to go, go. But she doesn't want him to go. And he's saying, look, if you want me to go, I'll go. He's not going to go.
No.
It's like
bluff and counter bluff.
and then I'll kiss your eyes. Because I had difficulty reading that. Because I was like, I thought it was a misprint in my book. It's like, you kissed her eyes? And then as I carried on reading, because the next line is like, she stared at him, unblinking. I was like, what, did he kiss her on the eyeballs? Like, the next line, her eyes are open. and then later on, she's like, she could still feel his kisses on her eyelids. And it's like, okay, no.
Okay, got the lids. Right. Good.
Got on the lids.
Also, like most people should have two eyes, so you'd have to go in for 2 kisses, and she would have had to just sit there for both.
Maybe your eyes are like really close together.
Just like one big mouth. Kissing on the eyes. Turn his face sideways. It's a really weird move, Tallanvor. Like on the cheek, on the forehead. But the double kiss on one on each eye. Yeah. Ballsy.
A little bit creepy.
Yeah. It was weird. Not gonna lie. But anyway, she seemed to like it.
He's also repeatedly referred to as unshaven, and if my kids are anything to go by, like a reaction should be, ooh, spiky.
Yes. That's not the reaction. Anyway, that's what happens in that chapter.
Sure, hey? Is it in this chapter where Perrin is like repeatedly referring to the Faile as fools and idiots? Like every time he talks about them, it could be this one and the next one. Just look out for it. Like it's repeatedly.
Faile also thinks of them as foolish in some things, because Perrin says to her, those fools. And he says, like, but in other things, they're quite smart. Like, they chose the leader for themselves, the one she would have chosen.
Yes.
She's like, that's the smartest one. If I had to choose a leader for them, I would have chosen that one. So they're not complete fools, but they are pretty foolish.
Is it?
Some of them are pretty dumb.
Salande is the leader?
Yes, Salande. There's this other guy that told the other two to back off, but I think that was just there because Salande wasn't there.
She thinks to herself, Salande had something extra, a steadiness, as if she had already faced the worst fear in her life and nothing could ever be that bad again. Which is
yes, she did.
Maybe she
that
had.
Event with Rand.
No, was
when
that
Rand
her?
does the crazy dragon thing with her and she like flips out. Just backs off. Because she was sent by Queen Alliandre to bed him, to try and sway him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her. So I think Faile thinks like she's steady and is the suitable leader, even though those two others, the guy that spoke now and there's another person she thinks are maybe like quicker of wit, like they're actually smarter, but she's the better leader.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to say. Throughout these chapters, we haven't drawn attention to them, but there's like 3 occasions where Perrin hears thunder in the distance. And then Faile is, when she's talking to them, she feels a shiver and she goes like, it feels like a cool breeze. And then Maigden as well, when she's lying on the ground, she's shivering. She pulls up her cloak around her. So the weather is starting to change.
Oh, yeah.
The effects are happening.
I'll tell you what, by chapter 14, it's significant already. Willie, what do you want to lob in there?
Oh, there's, again, not much. It's a little bit of politics, a little bit of things happening. The Faile, for me, has got, like, I don't like their cultural appropriation, but they have a different set of skill, being all, like, mid-level noble. Like, they have the ability to get into places of power easily and are young and foolish enough to be sort of just regarded as cool. Like they're not a challenge to any seat or anything.
Not a political challenge,
Yeah,
not
so
rivals.
Out of the perspective of Dias Daimon, again, we said, like, within what is our biggest focus going to be in the slog is what's happening in the game within the game. Like, that's actually a very useful tool. Because if you stick them into a court, just real, like, we're here for just checking out the scene. Like, immediately people are going to vie for votes, almost. Like, try and pull them into coalition. So they have this ability to be able to get information out of nobility, I suppose, quite good, quite well.
Unfortunately, they do not get anywhere near nobility again for the rest of the series. Like, Perrin's army is nowhere near a city. It's always missioning after Faile, fighting Shido.
I mean, it's not a bad part of her, like bringing a little Andron. She uses them, like, go into the city, dress
They
in dresses.
prove useful, for sure. Also, on the topic of the cultural appropriation, remember we read that half the Aiel actually want to teach them Ji'ito and actually want to like teach them how to do it properly. So it's certainly...
Because they're butchering it
at
the moment.
And the other half think they're fucking idiots and are completely offended by it. So I'm not dismissing the cultural appropriation thing there. I myself am conflicted by it. But there are a lot of actual Aiel that are like into it.
That sees it as a flattery.
Speaking of Aiel, Sulin is here.
Mm-hmm.
My first note is, yay, Sulin.
Yeah. Everyone's sitting around her. She's like, Brady's like, she's clearly the leader. Like, yeah, man, that's Sulin. Don't you know Sulin? Everyone knows Sulin.
My one note here is that Perrin thinks that Magdan looks familiar, but he's never met Morgase, has he? Obviously not. Otherwise, he would recognize her fully. It's either in this chapter or an upcoming. There's an upcoming chapter where he realizes she reminds him of Elayne.
No, it's this chapter.
Oh, is it this one?
My
okay.
chapter.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think when he sees her in the tent, she's like cleaned up, and then he's like, that's who you remind me of.
You remind me of Elayne, yeah. She would. Anything else, Willie? I've got a couple of things to lob in.
I actually don't have too much on this chapter. I mean, it's pretty on point. They're just moving through the motions.
It's setting up this group dynamic now, right? Like, okay, this little group whom we've traveled with somewhat, we know they have an extensive history and some influence, and they come with their own baggage, and it's now slotting into the other group now, Perrin's group, and how they fit in and how they maneuver around there. Just now, Perrin's reaction also to some of them, he notices, obviously, like you said, Joe, that Morgase or Magdan recognizes Aes Sedai. She also recognized the Mayena winged guards. Do you think she has like a reaction when she sees them? Do you think it's that she's surprised to see Mayenas so far west? Or does she think like, oh fuck, is Berelain here? Would she have met Berelain as a ruler?
As a ruler, that seems probable.
I'll keep an eye out for Berelain's reaction to meeting Magdan. Then, again, Perrin smells no fear from Bulwer. Just impatience and irritation. He also does not pay much attention to his surroundings. So Perrin thinks that Bulwer's not paying. Bulwer is filing everything away. And he's doing it in such a way that it looks to Perrin with his sharp eyes like he's not taking anything in. Just an absolute boss. Perrin would prefer to sleep under the sky for two reasons. He wants to be like the two of his men, but also wolves sleep under the sky. So Perrin is like, I don't want a tent, like I'd rather sleep under the sky.
Becoming more and more like Elias. Elias was also sleeping at that when he met him down by the side.
When Perrin says, I suppose Morgase was a good queen, but we had to fend for ourselves, and we did. He's specifically talking about the battle of the two rivers, right? Like there was no help from Andor. And they had to fend for themselves, so they did. For him,
there was no needing to fend for themselves in any other thing for as long as they can remember. That was the first thing that happened there.
Well, they always fended for themselves. They talk about the fact in the earlier books that no taxman or queen soldiers had been in the two rivers for years, even at that point. So, I mean, you could probably apply that to a wider range, but the event of raising the flags and raising the sort of quote-unquote rebellion. I feel like I've said quote-unquote a lot because I keep doing air quotes, but then I realize I'm on a podcast, so I have to say it, so I feel self-conscious about it. But it wasn't a rebellion. It was just like they had to fend for themselves in a war against Trollocs and Fades, it was heavy shit and they had no help.
Thousands of Trollocs over extended periods of time.
Yeah. I loved Lamgwin's little vouch for Perrin is like, oh, hi, hey lad, he speaks to him really endearingly. And he goes, I heard about young Rand and being the Dragon Reborn that you'd probably come up in the world as well. It's still talking about young Rand, like a protective uncle, which is really cool. Love that. I had a laugh at Linny obviously saying to Basil, now don't go rambling on because she has to remind, don't give away our game here. Stick to, she's making it sound like she doesn't want to bother Perrin with the details, but she's saying, Basil, only answer the questions that you are asked directly and don't elaborate for anything.
And she's right. If she hadn't been there, he would have spilled all the beans.
Oh, he's such a nervous wreck. Eh? And I mean, like, imagine Basil Gill versus Taverin. You know?
That moment where she walks in and says, no, you deserve the truth. It's pure, like, deflection at that moment. Like, Perrin immediately goes, okay, the truth focuses on her, and then realizes it's about a relationship of these two people chasing tail. And he's, like, not interested in this bullshit. Like,
she's so savvy.
Savvy. Really savvy. Like, complete deflection. Like, done perfectly. Perrin walks off like, I want nothing to do with this. Like, go
totally.
speak to Faile about it.
Morgase, when she says to Faile that, yes, she'll accept his service, she's looking at Perrin when she says, okay, fine, I will accept your service. So this ties in with your comment, Joe, about her, obviously, and what she says to Tallanvor, that she's she's setting herself up with someone of influence, and maybe she can do this to help Elayne. And she also recognizes Faile's noble birth, but that she is young and she's inexperienced, and she can exploit that. So thick in the game already, Morgase, playing it hard, which is great.
Good luck trying to exploit Faile. I would like to see you try.
Yeah. Faile is young, eh? Like, isn't she like 16, 17?
Young.
Nah.
Perrin is 19 and she's younger than him.
Maybe he's 18.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe at this stage, yeah.
Yeah.
And then two of the Faile that you read about here, Lucille and Arella, they are named in this chapter. They have crazy stories coming up, because I recognize the names, and as I do, it's like, this is a name I've read more than once. Let me go see what their deal is. Both of them, like when they're all captured, like when they're kidnapped, they become Guy Shane, and they both become romantically involved with, I think, either Shido or brotherless Aiel men. But one of them is a lesbian and still does it to extract information from them. And the other one suspects that the Aiel man was going to propose to her. He had already suggested proposing to her and carrying her back to the waste, and they could live a life there together. She kills him, like stabs him in the back or something during the battle. Like, they've got these crazy, so like these Faile are fools and idiots and all that, but they go through some heavy shit in the name of, you know, coming out on top and helping Faile and escaping the Shido and that sort of stuff.
Well, they are Kyrenians.
Yep.
Like, they know how to play a game, man.
Kyrenian nobles at that.
Yeah.
Actually, I think one of them might be a Terran.
There are some Terrans. I think that dude is a Terran.
Maybe.
Berelain.
Right.
Because he had a beard at some point, and he's still like stroking his, because they shaved it all off because the Aiel don't wear beards.
Yeah. So plenty of stuff coming up for them. And that is it from me. So unless you guys have anything else, question mark?
I have, like,
you do?
The slug as a topic in itself.
Yes, your theory, your secret theory.
Also, not secret theory. I just said we'll get to it at the end to make it exciting, but it's nothing really that exciting. Maybe you highlighted earlier you're going through this writing, the short course or the workshop.
Yes.
Rather say.
Yes.
The change of pace in the books, like, really starts from A Crown of Swords, but now the pace is completely slowed down in movement to events. Like, we are going through a quarter of a book being day, 2 days type of thing, and it's your mind wants to go forward in a story. There's still a lot happening in there. There's a lot of character building. There's a lot of development. There's a lot of Dias Daimar. There's all these things happening, but our minds wants to move with a story to point-to-point resolution, fight, battle, make love, fight, battle, do something else again, which was set up in 4.5, 5 books, was really frantically fast. So it's it's the slog because it changed, but it doesn't mean the content has changed. It's not hard work. Like I say, it's wordsy. Like, yes, there's a hell of a lot to read, more to remember, because it's not tied to an event. It's tied to a conversation. It's
not visual.
There's no visual, there's no thoughts of lightning and thunder. And
No.
we still have sprinklings and smatterings of that. But
We
I
do.
think the focus on that is turned down a bit. Like it's not just a Michael Bay movie now anymore.
No.
It's now turning into a Scorsese. Like it's now the 3.5 hour movie that you have to sit through, and you don't want to let it go. There's conversations. There's that. So that is what I'm gonna like continuously remind myself throughout this book. Like without a doubt, when I have to do it, and again dive into what is the conversation about. And I mean, it's sometimes it will be hard. Like it's at a point that's being labored for pages, as only RJ can labor it. But I've got to like maybe not call it the slog and call it the long movie now. I don't know. Find a different word for it because we still love it.
The simmer.
We still want to get through it. The simmer. Ooh, okay.
Okay.
I like slow cooking food, so that makes sense.
Yes, that word was probably inspired by your recent share of meals that you put in our group chat. Yes. But just to reiterate what I said in the beginning as well, Vil, like it's also, at least in the chapters that I've read now, what are we on? Chapter 8. So in the next 6-7 chapters, it's also just like, it's so bleak, you know, like a lot of it is Rand, you know, like now just being steel. The weather is turning shit. Everyone is like hugging their cloaks and the wind is whipping and it's rain and it's mud, you know, like everything in the story is like just dragging you down, you know, like the temperature is going down, like, you know, the pace is slowing down. Everyone's inner feelings are down. You're like, no one is like, it's very few victories. It's like every now and then they come up for air, they cleanse the source, you know, and like they do big events, but the rest of the time you're in people's heads and everything is dire and bad, and Rand just gets worse and worse and worse from here on out, and he's already quite bad. So it's not that it's difficult reading, but it can be unpleasant and like hard to digest, just because it's not so
used
fun.
as a method to well, I mean, in the overarch of the story, the world is affected. Like, okay, we found this magic tool just to fix the fact that we can grow food and get some water going again and rain and snow coming back. But the overarching thing is like the evil is on the world. Like the Dark One is being set free. There's going to be melancholy everywhere. It's going to be a feel of that, and then slow down in event to event and event. With a lot of politics that just makes you someday sigh. So you gotta find. I'm gonna find cherries everywhere in this, and just focus on that.
Speaking of finding cherries, have you found your favorite moment in these chapters?
Ooh, actually,
totally forgot.
a lot
Two
of
ends of the spectrum here. All right, Willie, why don't you go first so we give Jody a minute to think about it.
Like
recap.
Elise. It's everything about her, but nothing more than telling Nynaeve to have some cold water and to drink it slowly. In the heat of battle and fleeing, the worst thing that these girls, and I'm speaking in proxy to Egwene being caught by the Seanchan, like they know the fear and everything that comes with that necklace that's beating down on them. And whether the other woman know it or not, the urgency must be in Nynaeve to get away. And this woman's like, drink some water, and then later giving her a hat, like, cover that pretty face of yours. And like, it's just great. And then
before you go to the next one, even when they arrive at the farm, she doesn't seem to like defer to Rianne Corley either, who is the eldest of the kin. Even Rianne, she's sort of like, not bossing around, but she's not deferential or anything like that. So yeah, she is well and truly her own woman and doesn't stand back.
That would be why she's running the farm, so that they don't clash as her eldest position, pure age, versus this woman's organized life and running shit. And then Perrin calling out Masema for me is like so big. Like that is a very, very strong moment for me. Like initially, I thought that is a favorite moment. Like the way he worded it, like everything down and laying judgment on that. You will not be hanging people. I will be hanging people. I'm sent by Rand. Rand has never given you any power. So I think that is powerful. It's
a notable moment,
very, very notable.
Right, Joe, you managed to mine something from the depths there.
I could you see it on my face?
Yes.
It's blank. Yes, probably yours, Moritz. Sorry. The whole unweaving the gateway, riding backwards, firing arrows coming through, fireballs going through. That whole sequence where they show their mettle, these three women, and Brigitte like picks them up and puts them on the horse backwards. You need to see what you're doing, and then off they go.
Yeah.
It's a lot of tension happening, and they have to get away. And the Seanchan are flooding through the gate, and you think it's all over, and then
it is
for them. For the Seanchan.
Yeah,
there was like a little action-packed sequence of like battle and
here we are,
friendship and teamwork
in just 3 chapters, right? Like we're talking about the slog, and every now and then stuff like mini nuclear explosion happens, right? Like the Seanchan are decimated, and it's a cool action sequence, cool weaves, cool rules about the unweaving, like the description of it. The first time we see something like that happening, a lot of action.
It's actually the way you explained the fireballs from Aviendha. I didn't read it like that. I read her like where the fireballs were originating from where she is through the gate, but they're forming right in front of the gate and just going through.
Yes,
like,
and they're far away from the gate.
Yes, and they're getting further and further and further away.
What's cool for me about that is
some skills, man.
That they could see what's being thrown at them from the Damani, like the lightning. So it comes, and there's a lot of emphasis made about distance, like it's over a vast distance between the two parties that this is going across. So maybe that's like from Aviendha's side, like, cool, I'm not going to do it from here. She could probably have hurled the ball of fire from in front of her, but it's kind of like, I'll just do it from right in front of the hole. Like, why not? I can do it.
Yeah, go point blank so you don't miss the fucking gateway, right? Joe, mine's very close. It is the moment immediately after that where Elayne and Aviendha decide that they want to be first sisters. When Elayne says, "When we see a wise one next, I want to be first sisters," and that was just such a touching moment. Like we've seen the build up now, or they're like staying up at night. Because when you start reading about how Egwene and Aviendha start becoming friends when they're training together as apprentices and that sort of thing, you're like. I was thinking, like, how does this shift to Elayne and Aviendha again? If it's Egwene and Aviendha building up the relationship, but Egwene is there to sort of prime Aviendha for a relationship with a wetlander, and then it shifts over to Elayne, and then they quite purposefully and quite aggressively build a relationship because of their knowledge of their shared love interest. They have to, and they stay up at night, talking, telling each other secrets, and then sticking up for each other, and then all those little moments, like we saw, like when Nynaeve makes a comment about Elaine's weave, like Aviendha wants to go at her, all that sort of stuff. So it feels earned, and it feels like a cool payoff. Like, yes, they are so close. And like Aviendha's always making comments about like Elayne has honor and like that sort of thing, like not telling them about other people about how Aviendha feels about the water and all that sort of stuff. So it's constantly just like drip fed to us until at the end when they say that thing. It doesn't come out of the blue like, why are these two so close? Like it is earned. So that's why I love that. I've got 2 honorable mentions: Perrin winning some respect from Morgase and Tyrell when he sends that message with the Dragonsworn. So, I mean, my initial read was that Morgase sort of liked what she saw about Perrin, but your comment about like she saw an opportunity sort of shadows that a little bit. But at least the warder that looks at Perrin like he sees him for the first time. Yeah. I always like those moments when someone does something and then someone nods, because it happens all the time, right? It's like they saw him for the first time. Yes, okay, cool, RJ. We get it. They had a realization. And then the other one was Lamgwin sticking up for Perrin. And just like how we spoke about Perrin and Rand in such like an affectionate way, which was cool. Is that the first time we hear Lamgwin speak?
Possibly.
If it's not the first time, the others would have been like one word things.
Grunts.
Grunts, or like sitting at the door at the Queen's Blessing, just like nodding at someone, or like playing with a cat or something like that.
Oh yeah, there's plans for him to get married to Brienne as well. Is it Brienne? Yeah. I'm just saying names. Like
it's Brienne, yeah.
It is Brienne.
Yeah.
They're going to get married too against their will. And they're going to be grateful for it later.
But they'll want it.
Oh yeah. It's those other two.
Oh God. Let's hope that dance ends soon. To our listeners, send us your favorite moments, your crazy theories, your shower thoughts, corrections, and answers to our many questions by using the social media links in the episode description. Check out the website at bloodandashespodcast.com for links to the t-shirt store, as well as a way of sending us a voice message. You can have about 90 seconds that we can splice into an episode, which was cool, just like we did for Chris today. So thanks for that, Chris. Let's hope you inspired the masses. Once you've done all of that and left a comment, a review, or a star rating for the podcast on your favorite podcast app, you can prepare for next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover chapters 9 through to the end of chapter 11. So Tangles is chapter 9, and chapter 11 is called Questions and an Oath. That's 3 chapters again.
Do you already have the distribution planned? Are you also jumping in again?
I do, and I will.
Right. Yes.
Huzzah!
But this is the last one. I've got all the chapters planned out for the whole book, and this is the last time there'll be 3. Wow. So sharpen your pencils, boys. Next time there'll be 2 chapters each.
That's notes to do.
It's been a while since we've done that. It's been long chapters in this last run.
There has been. They shorten up a bit. But until then, I will say to you all, sleep well and wake.
Adios.
Cheers, everyone.